What's up, Internet? My name's Nerdy.
And I'm Claru.
And this is The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 2, Spoiler Chat, live.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers. We should get chat on the screen.
Yeah, we will. Clarus
like,
and I,
oopsie.
just to be honest, and you should already know this, stopped reacting to the show.
Yeah.
Weren't loving it.
Yep.
And so now we're going to talk about, we watch it week to week, like we kept up with it.
Yes.
But we wanted to talk with you all about why we maybe feel the way we feel about it, where we hope Season 3 goes.
Yeah, we weren't interested in reacting and potentially putting out a negative video every week. Because we weren't loving it, and we were very honest about that.
And honestly, the episodes... The episodes are long, and I found them boring. So reacting to them was a bit of a chore.
Yeah, definitely not my favorite. And so we're like, we'll do a live stream spoiler chat like we did for like Deadpool Wolverine, which was really fun. Because it kind of just lets us like work out our feelings almost in a way that's like, might edge towards like being fairly negative at points, but we're just trying to be honest. We're not trying to unnecessarily like shit all over the show.
Yeah.
We want to be very upfront that this is like not gonna be a super duper positive video, and so if you're
I have some very positive things to say.
I just mean like
about individual things.
Yeah, general overall gushing. Like we're just.
Well, but here's the thing. Like,
we're just gonna chat.
Let's both give our general thoughts, because I think that yours are similar to mine. Sure. Where, God, does this show have some great stuff, right? Mm-hmm. God, does it have scenes that are amazing? Does it have acting that is superb? Does it have music that is just absolutely wonderful? Mm-hmm. It's the set pieces, gorgeous. Yeah. A lot of the character design work, like the orcs all feel so practical, really cool. Yes. The show doesn't work, as a whole. Like, those pieces don't come together the way that you want them to, despite the fact that some of them are the most beautiful pieces. It's sort of like when you buy, when you get a Kickstarter game, right? And you're very excited because the Kickstarter looks great, and then you get it, and the minis that are in the box that sold you on buying this game are so good that you're like, I'm so glad I have this. But then when you actually try and play the game, it doesn't quite work. Yeah, like the game is just kind of nonsense, and you're like, it just feels a little hollow. Under play tested. Yeah. And so I think that's how I feel about it, is like there's something missing in the conception of the larger plan of this show, even though on a moment to moment case it's so good. Yeah. Is our stream down? No, it's still going. That's why I checked. We're still good. We're still live. I think that it's only down for some of you because it seems to be fine on our end. Sorry, guys. It is one of those things where we chatted we chatted briefly where I said, it is missing the storyboarding process. It is boarding. 100%. Yeah. We are missing the how do the pieces fit together on a larger scale. Right. Yeah. Where are we going with this? How can we fit this together seamlessly and really immerse people? And it's missing all of that. It's missing obviously the fucking 6 years that Peter Jackson had to put together the original trilogy. But other than that, when you have something that is this grand of a scale, you need that process. Obviously, 6 years is never going to happen nowadays. But we need more of the writer's room coming together for the larger scale picture, as opposed to, it just feels like they are frantically writing scenes which have really good basis in them, but no one's communicating about how it all fits together. Yeah, well, and there's some big examples of that in Season 2, right? Yeah. The orcs, the way in which the Legion of Orcs gets from Peligir to Eregion just hand-wavy doesn't make any sense. Yeah. It just doesn't. It doesn't work if you think about it. If you don't think about it, it's fine. They just get there. Yeah. But But that isn't how I want my, like, epic fantasy to feel. You know what I mean? I don't want things to just happen because, well, they did, so, like, let's move on.
Well, and
this show has a lot of that.
The opening scene of season 2 is, Galadriel and Sauron just rode into Eregion. Right? Or, no, sorry. They rode from Eregion to Lindon. Like, they just arrived there and showed up, and it's like they just went for a quick jaunt.
No, but they've been chasing each other for weeks.
Yeah.
Like, the show can't decide
how far away
Eregion is from
Lindon. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also so funny because the entire season, they treat Eregion like it is this long-loved bastion of the elves, right? Mm-hmm. This is our great city of Eregion. It's a year old. The dwarves built it in the spring of last year. Like, it's not, because the show can't decide what to do with its crunch timeline. And so sometimes it treats things like they're these long-running, like, majestic things, but Eregion is a year old because of the way they condense the timeline. It should be, like, 1500. I don't care about the lore as much.
Yeah.
But the show treats the world like it is the world from the books, despite the fact that they keep telling us that things are not how they happen in the books, right? They want to have it both ways in a way that I think consistently isn't working.
Yeah, it undercuts them. Like, there were definitely lore things in season 1 where I was like, what the fuck are they doing? But I tried to walk into season 2 being like, it doesn't matter what I think I know about this world. Yeah. I'm going to put that aside, because I think then I will enjoy the show much more. And unfortunately, that wasn't enough. Like, it's not lore changes that bother me or any of that. I'm not a, like, diehard, I know every Tolkien fact there is out there. It is just generally very messy. Helene in the chat says they enjoyed the way the manipulation of Sauron was portrayed. And I think that's fantastic.
I think we both agree that the Sauron Celebrimbor stuff is much like season 1 had the Elrond and Durin relationship, which was the best part of season 1.
Yeah.
The Sauron Celebrimbor stuff in this season is generally great, right? The performance of both the actors, I think Charlie Vickers really steps into the role of Sauron very well. I buy him as it. I think that he has a gravitas. Yeah. And it helps that the guy. So let's talk about the season 2. From the opening scene, right? Which is actually the past, right? The opening scene before the chase through the woods is this past with Sauron.
Is Gu Sauron.
And Gu, the guy who plays Sauron in the opening scene is so deeply not charismatic that it makes Charlie Vickers seem so because we were even joking, like, God, Sauron was terrible at talking to people back then.
Yeah, he learned a lot.
He learned a lot as Gu somehow. But Charlie Vickers this whole season, I think, carries it. I think that there's times where the show feels great to watch because he's such a good performer.
Absolutely. And Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
Like, I do want to say, like, I think his stuff in season 1 wasn't my favorite. But I think that the actor really did some incredible stuff in season 2.
Celebrimbor isn't in scenes with as many other people, though. Whereas I feel like Charlie Vickers has scenes with so many people, and it feels like he elevates the work of the people around him. Like, I think that Charlie Vickers I think that Morfydd Clark as Galadriel is not great. I don't think it works. I think the choices that the writers have made with who this character of Galadriel is, she's not really anybody. She just kind of, like, adapts drastically to different scenes. But she's at her best when she's in a scene with Charlie Vickers, as we showed in the finale. Like, the two of them together, there's something, either she's more comfortable on screen with him or he's just elevating her in a way. But I think that Morfydd Clark is at her best in the show when they're together.
Yeah.
And with everybody else, because the show can't figure out how to play Galadriel as impetuous and angry and also old and wise, with everyone else she just kind of comes off bitchy.
Yeah.
Because the writers are struggling with the tone of, this is Galadriel, but also we've decided to make her difficult. And so it's only with Sauron, who's the only character older than her, where her character kind of makes sense on screen.
Yeah,
where it's like,
for sure.
it's a real struggle whenever her scenes with Gil-galad, it's just really confusing to who has power in them.
Nobody listens to Gil-galad.
She never treats him like a king.
Because he's basically not.
But he is, right? And then in the final two episodes, they want us to have this feeling that like, oh, Gil-galad's here, everything's fine. But every character disrespects him at every step of the show.
Yeah.
That it's like, well, who gives a fuck if Gil-galad's here?
Yeah.
None of you like this guy. None of you have faith in him. None of you listen to him.
Yeah.
None of you have ever cared what Gil-galad thought. So this idea that in the finale we're supposed to be like, oh, Gil-galad's on this hill with a sword, everything's gonna be okay, is undercut by everything you've done to that point. And that's the like having it both ways thing that the show continuously tries to do.
Yes. It can't make up its mind, right? It wants to, like, I think be weirdly broadly appealing. And so they don't make strong choices, and so it's just very wishy-washy, and it feels bland in certain at times. Like, I think that the Disa Doran stuff has been consistently strong. Like, they've got some fantastic like ideas and character moments.
But the dwarves are really hindered by the plot this season.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, I think the kernel of the ideas that was there is really interesting. The execution, maybe not so much. I thought that the Sauron Celebrimbor stuff was fantastic. And then, unfortunately, the Numenor stuff didn't work for me. The Isildur stuff.
Let's do the Numenor stuff last.
And then also the Harfoot stuff did not work for me.
I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to go plotline by plotline instead of trying to talk about the episodes in order. So I want to start with the easiest plotline to talk about because I think that one of the best characters and actors on the show is Arondir. I think it's Ismael Cruz.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm getting his name right.
James Ross, thank you for being here, even though you haven't seen the show. This is going to be a wild ride for you.
At the beginning of the season, Arondir. I want to make sure I'm getting the actor's name right. I'm pretty sure it's Ismael Cruz. I think that he's one of my favorite people in season 1. Yeah, Ismael Cruz Cordova. Yeah. I think he's one of my favorite people in season 1. I think he's incredibly talented. He's obviously very handsome. He's charming. I think that he has a great part in season 1. Yeah. And then because Bronwyn's actress did not come back to season 2, he follows the trail of orcs all season and then gets fatally stabbed in episode 7, and then is just fine
appears,
in the finale.
Just comes back.
He's fine. What happened? Up. Like, did the writers of episode 8 not read the script for episode 7? Because he was, am I not wrong? He was stabbed to death.
Yeah.
In episode 7.
He died.
And he's fine in the next episode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That is exactly what happens.
I'm not wrong about this.
Yeah.
He was stabbed to death, and then he just is fine.
With no explanation.
Does anyone in chat have, like... Derek Willerton says, I feel like many of your complaints stem from things you just made up in your heads and not things that actually went down in the show. So are you saying that he wasn't stabbed in episode 7, Derek?
It's fine. He just dies and comes back as a, main character.
But Mimong's right. His armor wasn't even damaged.
No, he is not wounded.
We watched him get stabbed.
He is not wounded. He is just perfectly fine. No issues, no problems, no healing, no nothing.
But my problem with this is Arondir has literally no plotline in season 2. Kid in episode 2, I think it is, the kid is like, you're not my dad. And he's like, okay, so he leaves. And then he's just gone for multiple episodes, shows up at the final fight, gets stabbed, and then is just in the final episode.
Yeah. Which is honestly, tragic. Arondir...
there's no arc there. There's nothing for him to do. No,
Arondir should have been, the lead character or one of the major leads of the show, right? You have a world that, there are so many characters we already know so much about. Give us new stories, right? You're never going to appease the, die-hard Tolkien fans, right? That's just never going to happen. Give us a new character who has new things to do, who has new stories and new ideas, right?
Yeah.
Make the people who are unnamed and unheard of the core of your show, And they did nothing with him, and then they fake killed him, and then they brought him back for like a cool moment. And I was so frustrated with that, because I genuinely think that Arondir should have been utilized way more than he was.
Snacks is saying, to be fair, one of the elves could have healed Arondir. No,
What?
he's stabbed by Adar.
Guys,
I don't think you guys watched the show. He was stabbed by Adar, and then the orcs drag him into the city in the next episode, and he's fine. He hasn't seen any other elves in between.
And also,
like,
the orcs
No,
here's the thing. The orcs are also under order to kill everyone except the leaders.
And so somehow they think Arondir's a leader?
Arondir's not
Why?
a leader. He should have been killed. Even if he survived Adar stabbing him. Okay. A stray orc should have fucking shoved a blade in his gut, because that's what they were told to do. Like, it's just unfortunate that it happened the way that it did, and this leans into the problem.
Let's take the stabbing out of it. Let's take the stabbing out of it.
Sure.
They gave him nothing to do all season.
Sure.
They gave him, like, his arc was he's going to be gone for 5 episodes and then show up for the fight. But we don't have plot for him to do. We don't have anyone for him to interact with. We have this character that we don't have anything for him.
He doesn't even have a strong relationship.
He's just not in the show.
Yeah, he doesn't even have a strong relationship with Bronwyn's son.
Bronwyn's son telling him to fuck off is good character stuff. But then Bronwyn's son does nothing after that.
Exactly.
Like, that whole plotline in Pelargir, which was so much a part of season 1, all of those characters are in 2 or 3 episodes of the season with no arc or plotline to them, right? Like, the Pelargir people are basically just down there waiting for the Numenorians to show up for some reason. Even though I don't know why Kemen's going there.
I'm not sure.
You know what I mean? Like, that's never, and when Kemen left is never explained.
Yeah.
Like, these characters are straight up just teleporting around Middle-earth in a way that's almost exhausting to me, because it just kind of means that I can't there's nothing to get invested in, because anything can happen. And because they've kind of established that anything can happen, it's the same problem I have with the Acolyte and the way that they use the light speed in the Acolyte, was it just kind of became too fast. And so it just got to the point where it's like, well, why are there problems?
Yeah, exactly. You have to set the stakes somehow, and it just, I think they really did themselves a disservice.
Helene Carlson says, I thought they were going to focus on his grief this season. I would have loved that.
But
he leaves town, and then even in the finales, he's like, he wants to kill Adar. I guess that's them showing his grief. But that's it. He just wants to kill Adar, and then he doesn't, and it's like,
but they don't investigate that, right? It's not like the emotional storytelling is lacking in a lot of areas, which is why I think that when it was so prominent with Elrond and Durin and Disa, that it felt so good, right? Like that was like the height of the show, was those emotional connections between those characters. And so it was just, I think that season 2 was actually missing more of that. And then, in a way, season 1 did those kinds of moments better.
Dirk Goldstein says, the timeline of Kemen showing up to the port is such a non-issue. It's not about that individual moment. And I think that, I understand what you're saying is that doesn't matter. It's that the season as a whole, and honestly, these 2 seasons have consistently not made the timeline of events make sense.
Or the distance.
Or the distance,
that
right?
It takes people to travel.
And so the problem is, and this happened in late seasons of Game of Thrones, the more you hatchet away at your audience's understanding of where people are and how long it takes to get places, the more convenient the show starts to feel.
Yeah.
And so the stakes of distance start to disappear.
Yeah, it makes it bland. It undercuts your storytelling in a way that is it's such a small thing. Like, you know, like you said,
it really is.
That issue in and of itself doesn't really matter. It's when everything starts becoming hand-wavy that it feels like the storytellers don't care, and therefore the audience is less invested.
How far is it from Lindon to Eregion? And how far is it from Mordor to Eregion? And why are our characters moving at the same pace as one another? How is an army of orcs sneaking at night across the country of Middle-earth moving at the same speed as elves who can travel during the day and don't need to sleep as much and don't need to stop as much, getting from Lindon across safe lands where they don't have to hide? How are those 2 things happening simultaneously in a way where the orcs actually get past Eregion to the elves in the middle of the Barrows? Like, the geography of Middle-earth is established. I know where these things are. And so when your characters are when you're moving an army of orcs from one place to another faster than characters who have a shorter distance to go and don't have anything holding them back, I go, well, that just doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think Kempty just brings up in chat, is it bad I acknowledge these faults, but I still enjoyed the show? No.
No. Enjoy the show. I want you to.
It's not bad.
I want to share my opinion. If you love the show, I'm so happy you love it.
And like we have said, there are so many things to focus on to love. Like genuinely, like I want to be very clear about that. I think that the reason overall with the Rings of Power that I walk away feeling upset, dissatisfied, or disappointed is because I see those incredible moments, and I feel like I have this idea in my head of what the show could have been because I see the seeds of the incredible world building storytelling. Like it's almost there, right? And so when it does fall apart for me, when I do think that it's poorly done, those are highlighted when you put the good and the bad side by side, because I think the good moments are so good that it makes the bad moments feel worse, right?
I think I want to end with Arondir really quick and say that I'm disappointed in the show because I get that Bronwyn didn't come back. And I think that they probably wrote something for Arondir, and what they did was, Bronwyn doesn't want to come back, let's just cut it. And so rather than write more stuff for him, they just cut it. I don't know where that time went because these episodes are so long. So I don't know what they rewrote. But I'm disappointed. He was my favorite character in season 1. He's the thing that I get most excited about when I look back on it.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping that in season 3, they give him a reason to be in the show.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have one right now other than to be another elf. And I think he's great. Like, I really think he's awesome. And so I hope that they clean that up because it's so messy right now.
Yeah.
He didn't even get to kill Adar, so like what is his purpose now? What is his reason for being here? And I think that's going to be a real that's we're going to talk a lot today, I think, about how the show has to establish so much in season 3. Like they kind of have to completely start over.
Yeah, which
I think is a real hindrance from a conceptual standpoint.
But it might be a good thing in terms
No, because they only have 18 more episodes. Let's talk about this. 18 more episodes. What does this show have to do in 18 1-hour episodes of TV? We have to do the Fall of Numenor. We have to build Minas Tirith.
Numenor's already fucked.
We have to start. We have to build like all of Minas Tirith. We have to build these giant cities. We have to somehow find armies of men and elves. When right now there's like 40 elves and like maybe 75 humans in the show. They've done such a bad job at scale. True. We have to forge the One Ring. We have to meet all of the human kings in all of these human kingdoms that don't exist.
Yeah.
There's no human kingdoms right now. So who are the 9 kings going to be?
Right, who do the rings go to?
We have to get all of these guys, give them the rings, get them to fall.
John, it's fine. Nerdy can't do math. Don't worry about it.
Wait, what's 3 times 8?
Yeah.
24?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, we have 24 more episodes.
Fine.
Like, we have 24 episodes to do stuff that they could have just said is already done. Like, the show could have started with Minas Tirith just existing.
Yeah, it could have been established. I agree. I think that they have done themselves a disservice having to set that up. Comrade over on Twitch is asking how we feel about Tom Bombadil. Would you want to talk about that storyline next? If we're doing, like, storylines.
Oh, so you want to go with the Stranger next?
With Gandalf.
Derek Wilton says his storyline this season was that he wanted to kill Adar. I fucking know that, dude. I've said that. My point is that he was off screen for 5 episodes doing nothing and then didn't do that with Adar.
Yeah.
He got stabbed by Adar real quickly and nothing happened. There was no emotional resolution to it. No. He didn't feel anything about getting stabbed by Adar. He went to stab him, got stabbed, nothing happened, and then there was nothing in the final episode about him.
No.
He was just there to pick up Galadriel.
He did have a good scene with Galadriel. I liked their little chit-chat.
Because Ismael Cordoza, he's great.
Fantastic. That's what I mean.
But none of it was about him.
Yeah.
He like...
No, I agree.
They shunted him off screen. Mm-hmm. He showed up, got stabbed. They magically healed him nonsensically, and then didn't resolve his arc in any way because they had to make it about Galadriel.
Yeah.
I understand he wanted to kill Adar, right? Like, I get that.
Yeah.
It's what they did with him by not allowing him to have any moments that were about his narrative, even though it kind of should have been. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. Like, Galadriel's your main character for some reason, even though she does nothing except fuck up and let Sauron win over and over and over again. But
Yeah.
Arondir's plot matters, and it didn't, and that's why it sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I wish there was more to it.
There's nothing. He just gets stabbed and then he's fine, and he has no thoughts about that. He just is like, Galadriel, what do we do next? Yeah. And it's like, well, that's it. Like, that's what we get. And I don't know. I think the actor's talented. He's the only character whose end I don't know right now, right? And so I want to know more about him. I want to flesh him out instead of being like, and then Galadriel does another thing, and then Galadriel does another thing, and it keeps helping Sauron because Galadriel is the dumbest motherfucker in Middle-earth. Galadriel watches her only ally get stabbed repeatedly by orcs and just stands there and watches it. Like,
I unfortunately I do not love Galadriel as a character, and so her being the main focus of the show definitely affects my enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
Because I do think that they have written her as dumb and arrogant, and I think that is just not very interesting for my lead character.
She doesn't work with anybody else.
Yeah, unfortunately.
She is written like a lone wolf cop character in an 80s in like an 80s police sitcom where like the captain is constantly yelling at her like, I need your gun and your badge, you're a loose cannon, Galadriel. Like, Gil-galad is essentially a police captain telling her to calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
Right?
Justin has just spoken on a point that we talked about in season 1 reactions many times, that we're not really sure why it is Galadriel and not Celebrian.
Yeah.
I think that would have been
the kiss with Elrond would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah, it would have been a much stronger choice on so many different levels. I really am confused why they decided it had to be Galadriel. Like, I am really not sure. I am baffled by that. Because the show would have worked so much better.
They have to establish Lothlorien. That just doesn't exist. That's supposed to be around. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's the problem with their Middle-earth is there's nothing in it, right? There's Lindon and there's Eregion. There's no other elves.
And a bunch of villages.
No, there's no villages.
Of men, yeah.
Well, okay, there's like tiny scraps of
There
men.
are elves spying on villages of men who originally sided with Morgoth.
But we never see those, right?
We see our Bronwyn's village.
Those are gone. That's gone, though. In
season
2.
It is gone.
In season 2.
Yes.
We're told that there's other dwarves. We don't really see where that would be, even though there's supposed to be... But I know, but there's supposed to be 3 other dwarf kings in Khazad-dûm. So, like, they have to explain where those people are because they don't want it to be big, right? But so the elves just have Lindon and Eregion. There's nowhere else. It's just those 2 places. It's 2 cities of elves at the height of the elves in the Second Age. So, like, there should be other... Like, Lothlorien is supposed to exist at this point. Like, there are other these characters should have people to go to. Gil-galad is the High King of the elves of a bunch of places, but none of those places exist in the show. And so when we get to the Last Alliance, where are these people going to come from? You haven't established anybody.
Yeah.
You haven't, like, built up the size of these populations with any narrative.
The world feels, like, weirdly empty.
Every time the elves gather for, like, big important things, it's like 40 people.
Yeah.
And it just...
There's no crowds.
And then in the battle episode, in these past 2 episodes, there's an army charge of, like, 1,000 elves on horses, and then 6 scenes later, there's like 40 of them left. And it's like, what happened to all the horses? Where did all those horses go?
They're all dead.
They're just all, I guess? Yeah. Like, the entire army of Lindon is just gone?
Yeah.
And then when, later on, Elrond and Gil-galad and Galadriel are talking, right? And Elrond is like, yeah, the survivors of Eregion, they're broken. There's basically nobody left. And I'm like, what about your army? Why aren't you talking about the fact that you lost an army of elves in the last 24 hours? Where did 1,000 elves go? They just disappear somehow.
Yeah.
It's so baffling because, like, the scene is good. The scene between Elrond and Gil-galad, like, the scene is great. But I can't understand why they're not more concerned about the fact that their army died. That they were all fucking... That a few Uruk with no armor and barely swords, they have no shields, they wiped out an army of elves somehow off screen. We didn't see the 1,000 dead. They're just gone. And you know what? Our leaders are just not going to talk about it. The leaders are not concerned about the fact that they led an army to death because of bad tactics, because of a halt to save Galadriel from a cage, I guess. I don't fucking know. But so we're not going to acknowledge the fact that we got our whole army killed.
Yeah.
But we're going to worry about the Eregion survivors. And I'm like, yeah, but, like, your army's dead. Of course Eregion's not going to save you because you you fucked up with your arm. Like, it's decisions that are really hard to understand what they want the audience to get out of it.
Yes. It's like, what was the point?
Yeah.
And I don't think that they have thought that much about it, unfortunately. Yeah. The Gandalf storyline, probably my least favorite, unfortunately. So
we're going to Gandalf?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much because it is genuinely just kind of...
Well, I want to talk about Tom Bombadil.
My least favorite. Sure, yeah. So anyways, the Poppy and Nori shows up. No, wait, sorry.
What?
Sorry, Nori... Wait, who shows up?
Nori and...
Poppy shows up.
Poppy shows up.
Randomly.
Even though we spent like 5 minutes saying goodbye to her at the end of season 1.
Full 5 minutes.
She just immediately shows up in episode 1.
Uh-huh.
They couldn't hold off on having Poppy in the show for like 12 minutes, which is just exhausting now. Because now, like, why... like.
Well, and people already complained about the drawn-outness of that goodbye.
Yeah.
And so to completely undercut it like that, I think was, again, a poor choice. But yeah, she shows up, and she's there, and they go adventuring. And they find the prophecy of the Shire. Which I know is your favorite part.
They get split up, and they go meet the original Harfoots that their ancestors left. And we find out that the Shire from the Lord... And this gets into the biggest problem I have with Rings of Power, right? The biggest problem with the show is that every single thing is just set up to prequelize something from the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Right? In this season, we get Gandalf learning his lines from Tom Bombadil, which I kind of hate. We get... Poppy and Nori find out that the Shire was the long-lost prophecy of the Harfoots.
Yes.
And that the Shire, which is just where they live in a nice place by a river, but apparently that needs to be a fucking prophecy that they left to go chase. We get that Sauron was always evil, because Sauron was always evil, but somehow Gandalf and him worked together for thousands of years and created a council and are friends.
They argued, and then they became besties again, and then they argued again, and then they became besties. They're really actually toxic best friends. Yeah. Except that
Saruman tries to kill the halflings. We prequelize like fucking...
But he is wise.
Why does Elendil get Narsil? Well, we need a whole scene where Elendil is handed Narsil, and we explain that it's Narsil.
The exact same way that Aragorn
It has to be the same way that Aragorn gets it.
Arendil.
Everything about the show is just them being like, oh my god, how will they understand that there's a Balrog in Khazad-dûm if we don't show the Balrog in Khazad-dûm? How will they understand that Gandalf has a stick if we don't make an entire season about how he needs a stick? The
show is weirdly obsessed with being like, hey, remember that thing from The Lord of the Rings? Yeah. This is how it happened. This is where it came from. We remember that? Well, take a look at this. You remember that?
When Durin talks about the Balrog, he uses the exact line that Gandalf uses to talk about the things that fight the Balrog.
And John makes a good point. That makes it feel like bad fan fiction.
Yeah, 100%.
Where it should feel heightened, right? Like they should be making the space to forge their own way through this story.
Yeah.
But they have to reference every single thing from the original trilogy, and I really don't need that. I really don't.
Which brings us to The Stranger and Tom Bombadil. Because Tom Bombadil is great. It's a great performance by an incredible actor.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he fucking nails
the vibe.
The vibe of Tom Bombadil.
The vibe is immaculate.
His HUD is perfect. I think the actor playing Tom Bombadil is so fucking good.
Yeah.
But the character of Tom Bombadil on the show becomes a memberberry machine, right?
Yeah.
He becomes just a like, well...
Remember this quote? Remember what you said to me? You remember the stick? You remember... Yeah.
And so the problem with Tom Bombadil is that it's such a great performance, but everything about him is just... we need the audience to understand that you're Gandalf, so we are making this character a Gandalf explainer. Mm-hmm. And Meemunk says they made him Yoda, but it's different because when Yoda was introduced, Yoda had information that the audience didn't, right? And so Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, if you watch the series from beginning to end, then if you watch it if you watch it in the numbered order with Star Wars, you know what Yoda is going to tell Luke. But when you watch Just a New Hope and then Empire Strikes Back, Yoda is actually providing new information to the audience. Mm-hmm. The problem with Tom Bombadil is that we know everything that Tom Bombadil is telling Gandalf. We are aware of it.
Yeah.
And so he's not giving us any information. He is just telling us stuff that we know. And I think that if you really enjoy when your media just points to stuff that you like and goes, remember that? South Park made fun of it 20 years ago, and we're still doing it. Like, these prequels, and all of them struggle with this. I'm not just throwing this at Rings of Power. I think that Rings of Power really struggles with this. I think all the Star Wars prequels really struggle with this, except maybe the Acolyte. I don't think Acolyte member buried too hard, but Solo certainly does.
But here's the thing. House of the Dragon didn't, and it stands out.
See, I kind of agree with you.
There's
in some ways.
2 things.
But House of the Dragon
maybe
leans really hard on the Song of Ice and Fire. And my understanding is that's not in the book at all.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay, well,
so
I didn't know that,
the Song of Ice and Fire stuff from House of the Dragon isn't in Fire and Blood. Cool. None of Rhaenyra's actions in that show are based, in the book, are based on what Viserys tells her. I mean, and so they made that choice to tie it to the show really hardcore.
But even still, that is one strong tie as opposed to like a million little things, which I do want to. Jude Stratford brings up the Narsil scene was peak, and I think truly that scene would have been so much more impactful if they hadn't been doing that the entire show. And that's the point that I think is most important to make, is that you can have those moments when everything becomes a member berry. When everything is like, look at this, look at this,
I think
look
you have to pick your moments. The show doesn't pick its moments. Yeah. Everything is the same.
Yes, because if you took that scene out, if you had never seen Rings of Power but you've seen The Lord of the Rings, and someone pulled that scene out of the show and showed it to you, I think it would be epic.
Yeah.
I think, like, obviously, like you said, it is Aragorn's ancestor. There is this, like, it's like poetry, it rhymes moment.
Yeah.
It is just undercut, unfortunately, by every single thing being that.
Yeah, well, and the Stranger storyline is the worst for it.
Yeah.
Like, the Stranger story, Tom Bombadil is just saying lines from Lord of the Rings to him. Mm-hmm. And it's like, Gandalf can come up with his own words. It doesn't have to be something Tom Bombadil told him 2,000 years ago.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
And I think that Tom Bombadil would have been stronger if his dialogue was Tom Bombadil dialogue and not stuff Gandalf says in The Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Because I think, again, the performance is great, but, like, the need for the show to be like, well, Gandalf actually learned that from Tom Bombadil is really weak to me, particularly because Tom Bombadil is supposed to be a character that doesn't care about the goings-on of the wider world, and he's very concerned with how Gandalf has to fight Sauron.
Very suddenly he is. And, like I said, I tried to walk into this not having knowledge of... Not having knowledge apart from the Lord of the Rings movies. And because Tom Bombadil doesn't appear in those, I'm like, okay, it's fine. But if you are bringing the books into it, Tom Bombadil is very withdrawn from the goings-on of the world. And so to really hard insert him here is a choice. I don't know. I'm going to reserve judgment on that.
His thing is supposed to be that he's a little bit aloof.
Yeah.
And instead they made him like omnipresent. Mm-hmm. They made him omniscient about the future of the show. Mm-hmm. He has all the information. Whereas it's like the whole point of the character is that he's so old and he's so powerful that he is just a little bit out of touch. Like, the idea is that if you gave him the ring, he would forget about it and lose it. Yeah. Right? That's what Fellowship sets up.
Yeah.
And so to take that character and make him the, like, quest giver for Gandalf, whose quest does not matter to the show. Like, I cannot stress enough how much Gandalf can't be a part of the solution to this show because he's not there. He's not present. He is not a part of the Last Alliance. Gandalf doesn't come to Middle-earth for 1,600 years.
I know. He will be.
This idea that Gandalf has to be the one to fight Sauron is so deeply problematic to me in terms of what the show has to do later now. Yeah. Because you've now said it multiple times. Tom Bombadil has said that Gandalf has to go be fighting Sauron. Mm-hmm. And so now you have to invent a fight between the two of them. Or else, like, his part on the show doesn't exist. Well, and so the show eventually is going to have Sauron and Gandalf fight somehow in a way that isn't lore accurate at all. And forcing the future of this show to do that, I think, is really dangerous for the writers now.
Well, especially because
one's going to be happy.
Because in the movies, we have seen that the battle comes down to Elendil and Isildur. Like, that is how the lore goes, right? And because it is in the movies, the lore, they've called the show The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which means that they really should not be changing anything in The Lord of the Rings Other stuff, whatever. I'm not going to get into any of that. But if you cannot be changing things that happen in the Lord of the Rings trilogy when you name your show that way. So I don't know how they're going to approach that. I reserve judgment because maybe they have a plan, but right now I don't understand it. Helene, I think, put it in a really interesting way. Instead of paying homage to the movies, it feels like they're constantly trying to justify the reason for the show to exist.
100%.
I think that's a really valid way to put it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not my favorite method of storytelling. Yeah. Sauron.
Can I disagree with you really quickly about that? My problem isn't that they're changing things from the Lord of the Rings, right?
Sure.
My problem with setting up that Gandalf and Sauron have to fight is that I know that fight doesn't mean anything because neither of them can win or lose. Right?
But you only know that because of the Lord of the Rings.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, of course that.
Yeah.
But like, I know they're not going to have Gandalf kill Sauron, and I know they're not going to have Sauron kill Gandalf because neither of those things make sense. So you've now established that this character's destiny on Middle-earth is to not do anything. Is to do something that can't change the situation.
But we know that because of the Lord of the Rings, which is what I'm tying it to, right? Because of those movies, because we know how we know how Sauron dies for a moment, dies a little bit. We know that is Isildur, and that is not Gandalf. So yeah, I agree. Because we know where it's going, it unfortunately undercuts the entire point of Gandalf being there. So I am curious to see what they are going to do with it. Yeah. The thing about Saruman being that wizard, it's not said that he's Saruman, but then I guess it's a blue wizard who's also like evil, I guess. It just feels very weird that they went with a very Saruman like look-alike almost, but like a darker version. I am going to reserve judgment on the Dark Wizard thing for the moment because maybe it will go somewhere cool, but as it stands right now, I don't love it. I do not love it.
So that's my feeling about Tom Bombadil and the Stranger storyline. It was fine. It didn't really do anything. He eventually found a stick. Saruman killed a bunch of halflings. And Gandalf saved most of them, and he got a stick. Like, that's the entire season. That's really it. Like, that's all. That's the Stranger's entire plotline.
Yeah.
Is that he chose friendship, and he got a stick.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it. That's there. Nothing else happens. He meets Tom Bombadil. He gets sent on a journey to defeat Sauron.
Yeah.
And he has a stick now, so he's going to be able to do it. Like, it's a little weak.
No, really, really not my favorite.
I wish they'd given him more. I think the actor who plays Gandalf is very talented. I think that he's great as the character. There's not much like Arondir's plotline. There's not a lot of meat on the bone. It's sort of just. It's a little bit shallow. We're playing kind of in a kiddie pool with this show sometimes. And Gandalf, I think, gets a really...
Because there's too many things going on.
Yeah.
They should have focused it in on less storylines because we really could have, deep delved into those. And I would have actually been much happier. Sorry about the planes. I opened the window because I was like, it's hot in here. But, yeah, it's fine. We're moving. We won't have to deal with that anymore. The Witch King is a king of men, not Ishtar. He literally says there were 5 of us.
No, he has to be one of the 5.
He says there are 5 of us, so he might be lying, I guess, but he can't... But then it's like, okay, why?
So yeah, I don't mind Nori and Poppy. I just think making the Shire a prophecy is really lame. I just...
Why? Yeah.
If you want it to be a prophecy, make it a prophecy of some consequence. But we prophesize that one day our people would find a nice spot by a river to live in. Is just a weird, everyone lives by the river. Across all of human history, we've always settled by the river. It's just a really weird prophecy, because why would you live anywhere else? You need fresh, clean water to live.
Yeah.
Who prophesizes that we're going to find the Shire when the Shire is just a place that had water and plowable fields? It doesn't...
It had good farmland. Great spot set up for agriculture.
And the prophecy isn't there's this tree that you're going to live by, or it's literally just that we're going to find a place that has hills and a river. And I'm like, that's where 99% of humans have set up civilizations before irrigation. Right? Before we were able to move water to our fields, that's where everybody lived everywhere on the planet. Of course that's where the Shire would be. Why would it be far from that? It just doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. It was an odd thing to shoehorn in there. Again, another pointing at this to be like, look, guys, it's the thing from the thing that you love. Which I think, again, it undercuts so much of the good moments.
Yeah.
Sorry, anyone using the word woke unironically in the chat, just leave. That we're not going to talk about how, like, we don't like people of color in our fucking shows. This is not going to be the chat for you. If you're here for constructive criticism, you're welcome to stick around, but don't be a little bitch. All right.
Jay Morrison saying Witcher season 2 and 3 plus a spinoff, that's worse. Witcher Blood Origin is maybe the worst 4-episode thing I've ever seen in my life. Like
that
Witcher,
was rough. That was really rough.
I hate to call it garbage because people worked really hard on it.
Yes.
But like that was those 4 episodes of television. I remember watching the finale because we only reacted to the first 2, and they were like, "There's no way we're watching these on camera."
Nope, we were like, "Turn off the cameras."
I almost wish that our reactions did exist because I think we were both kind of sitting there like,
we sat there being like,
They spent so much. How did Netflix fuck up this bad?"
Yeah.
I don't know how they fucked it. Honestly, I don't know how. I think that Amazon Prime has mismanaged Rings of Power and Wheel of Time. In terms of who they've given those properties to and how they've been handled. Mm-hmm. I don't know how they fucked, but like as far as fucking up fantasy series go, I think Witcher is significantly worse than Rings of Power or Wheel of Time in terms of management. I think
that is fair.
Part of it is I think Amazon has better casting.
I can't really speak to that because we didn't finish season 3. We watched 30 minutes of it and turned it off. So I really I don't think I can have an informed opinion on that.
Fabio Moose, thank you for subscribing on Tweet.
Subbing, we appreciate you.
Ren says the only thing I'm waiting for is Galadriel and Gandalf to meet and face off against Sauron. If that doesn't happen, what is even the point of the show?
Isn't that just the Hobbit?
No, but I agree with that, right?
No, but that's just the Hobbit.
They've literally
already
done
that.
Yeah,
guys, they already did that.
Yeah. Mimung says Vox Machina is such a good example of how to adapt stuff, but the people who made those characters are adapting it, and that's the problem, right? Mm-hmm. It's the problem with all of these things is that when Vox Machina is adapted, what we're getting is the way in which the people who want to tell that story want to tell that story. Mm-hmm. With this, we're getting some writers who are first-time showrunners, right? They've never made anything before the show because Amazon didn't want someone that they couldn't control in charge. Mm-hmm. They wanted lackeys that they could fucking push around into whatever Amazon wanted. Yeah. And so they put people who had no experience in charge of the most expensive television show in history. Yeah. And they're paying, I think, ratings-wise and, like, from a review standpoint, I think they're paying the price for not bringing in auteurs who have a real sense of point of view. Because I think the show's biggest problem is it doesn't really have a point of view.
And can do a grand scale project like this.
Because the show feels like Amazon keeps stepping in and being like,
no,
you have to have Gandalf. Yeah. So here's the thing.
It has to be Galadriel because people hobbits. Know Galadriel. Yeah.
And we need, what this show needed to be was like Andor, where you have like a Tony Gilroy who shows up and is like, this is my vision.
And it's fresh. Yeah. I just want to, Search to Unsettle is confused as to why we think that the Jackson films are the lore for the show. It's because you called the show The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power.
But the book is also called The Lord of the Rings. This is a statement that Clara says that I don't agree with. So we're on a different side of this.
Sure, we disagree on this. If you are making a TV show and you are calling it The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, then you need to be consistent with the lore of the thing that you are referencing. So if it is The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, as opposed to just The Rings of Power. If it was just The Rings of Power, fine, fuck around, you can do whatever you want with it, I guess. It's still not my favorite choice. But you called the show The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which is a bad title.
I know, but you keep saying that it's because the movie is called Lord of the Rings, but the book is also called Lord of the Rings. So I don't understand that point that you make.
But Gandalf also does not fight Sauron in the book Lord of the Rings.
No, and I agree with that. But you keep saying this thing where you're saying that they're tying themselves to the movies, and I just don't agree with you on that statement.
No, I was saying that specifically you talked about how Gandalf and Sauron cannot fight one another and one defeat the other, right? Because in the movies and in the books, Isildur is the one who defeats Sauron and takes the ring.
I agree with that.
That is movies and books.
Yeah.
And so I think that
but they haven't
keeping
changed that
consistent. But no, I was saying in reference to, you were like, where does this go with Gandalf and Sauron? Like, how are they supposed to do that? Yeah. They can't change that, and if they do, I think that's a very poor move.
Me Monkey's right. They do use the Balrog design from the movies.
They do, yes. Yeah. So I think that you have linked yourselves to those movies in a way that you can't undercut it, or you will just upset people even more. I think that is a personal opinion.
Yeah.
I am not spewing that as an objective fact. It is just a weird thing to me personally. And if you agree with me, great. If you don't, totally fine.
Jay Morrison says House of the Dragon isn't called Game of Thrones House of the Dragon, and that's because HBO, as much as people hate the finale of Game of Thrones, and there's a lot of reasons. Listen to that Kit Harington interview where he's like, we couldn't have done anymore. We were all like falling apart.
Yeah.
It's HBO knows how to handle its properties. HBO is really, really good at handling its brand. Mm-hmm. The HBO brand is strong. Now, obviously, the choice to go HBO Max to Max was really stupid, but that was David, whatever his name is. That's not HBO's fault. HBO historically handles its brands very well, and Amazon, in my opinion, doesn't. I think Amazon has made a few good TV shows. I think Fallout is very good.
I think The Boys is great.
Yeah. Now, granted, but with The Boys, right? The Boys is produced by Seth Green. Seth Green is Robot Chicken. Seth, what's his fucking name?
It's not
Rogen.
MacFarlane. Oh,
Seth Rogen.
Seth MacFarlane? I don't know.
Seth Rogen and his team, which have enough clout that they can make the show their way. They've made enough money for studios. They've made many movies that have made, you know what I mean? Like, they're in a position that the Rings of Power showrunners aren't, where because they have a body of work, they can go like, no, this is what it needs to be. Whereas the Rings of Power people, it doesn't seem like they can say no to a single studio note. And that's the thing that the show feels like.
Yes.
It feels like, I wouldn't be surprised if the scripts started as studio notes of things that have to be in it. And they are just trying... No, but I'm serious.
No, they gave them a laundry list of, here's what you have to reference. 100%.
We need a Balrog. We need this. We need this. We need this. Because...
We need the crown.
The show Rings of Power doesn't do a lot of work to justify how it gets to things. It gets to things and then kind of tries to justify it poorly after, right?
Ooh, did Seth Rogen produce Preacher?
Yeah.
That's fun. I've actually seen
and Evan Goldstein.
Very cool.
It's
very
Goldstein
cool.
or Goldberg, his producing partner.
Cool.
They have a track record of producing stuff. Like you can trust that they're going to put out a product that's pretty good, because even Sausage Fest, which a lot of people don't like, has fans and made money, right?
Sure,
like they are a well-oiled machine over there in a way that like this the fantasy department at Amazon Prime just isn't right now. There isn't a vision. There is just sort of, we need people who have a few writing credits to come in and follow our studio notes. And it just seems like that is the model, and it's hurting the show. Like the incessant need to get to the fall of Eregion, but not explain how anyone got there or who or what the sides are or like the fight itself. Like the battle is terrible. First of all, they stopped the river by blowing rocks off of a mountain. That's not that doesn't do that. That's just not how rivers work. The water would still have to go somewhere. Where did all that fucking water go? Like, that's not... You can't just dam a river.
Where is the flood?
No, but actually, you can't just dam a river by dropping some rocks on it. It's not... Yeah. There's no sense put into it. The horse halt, where the horses of the Linden Elves are charging down on the army, and then 15 feet, an army of horses just fucking stops all of a sudden.
This might be the worst moment on TV I have ever seen. Like, I was so invested, because I thought this moment leading up to it was really good. I was like, Elrond's lining up. We're doing a charge. This feels like the Lord of the Rings. Yeah. And then in a 20-foot distance, the horses all just stop.
Because they just, like, see Galadriel.
They stopped an entire horse charge. Yeah. The momentum, you cannot stop momentum like that in like 20 feet. Yeah. When we watched this, I almost wish we were acting, because I burst out laughing. I fucking cackled. I literally like couldn't like watch the next like 3 minutes, because I was just like laughing so hard, because they didn't even try and film it in a way that put more distance in between them. It was like, oh no, they just stopped. They just stop. And I was like, terrible. Like, yeah. I fucking almost died. I literally almost dropped dead.
And then what follows is a battle that just doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's fine.
And the problem is, again, individual moments of it are very cool. Mm-hmm. In the finale, there's that great shot of the elf shooting the arrows and then like sliding down the roof and then immediately getting taken out once he hits the ground.
Great shot.
That stunt is well shot.
Yeah, man.
But the Battle of Eregion as a whole just tactically doesn't make sense, right? The trebuchets continue to fire even though we are shown Elrond and the elves destroying a bunch of them, but that doesn't seem to do anything. Where did the trebuchets come from? Yeah. Did they roll the trebuchets from Mordor? Then how the fuck did they get there that fast? Or did they build all the trebuchets right there? How does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like, the sense isn't there.
They couldn't have rolled them through the forest.
No.
They also did not, unfortunately, set up establishing shots. So following the geography of this battle was incredibly difficult, which I just think just does a disservice to the viewers who are trying to follow things. Like, the moments are extra cool when we understand them in the scope of the battle, but they just kind of had just, like, moments as opposed to fleshing out the entire thing.
Judith Shafford says, that's more of a problem of fantasy in general. Were you guys expecting Agincourt? I'm not watching a fantasy series for medieval realism. Why not just watch a documentary reenactment? Have you seen the Lord of the Rings movies? They were made over 20 years ago for less than this was. And the battles make sense and are really well filmed and are and like the audience can follow what's going on. It's almost like this franchise has already pulled this off. And I have expectations because the franchise is good at this particular thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like, Jude, this franchise in particular has set the standard for what these battles should be, and then this season does not live up to the standard that the franchise has previously set.
Right. And if you wanted
that might be why.
And if you wanted to distance yourself from it, make that choice. And make it strong. Don't put the fucking crown shape thing again. Don't do the same Balrog design. Like, if you want to be a different vibe, you have to distance yourself from that. You have to distance yourself from the thing that you are then referencing, which horses, again, is a weird choice. But horses work the way that horses work.
Yeah.
This isn't Attack on Titan, okay?
Horses are real. And we all know...
Momentum is a force that does exist in this world, okay? Yeah. We've seen it. And we've seen it in the movies when the horses fucking chew through the lines of the orcs. Yeah. Like the Rohirrim fuck up the orcs.
Yeah.
And they're just able to be like, oh, just kidding.
100%.
Just kidding.
I also think that given the incredible combat scenes we saw in House of the Dragon Season 2, and I understand, like, House of the Dragon Season 2 has a lot of problems, and I think the finale's bad.
Sure.
But that Episode 4 combat scene is it's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I understand what's happening the whole time. Despite the fact that I'm watching a ground charge and dragon fights in the sky, I'm able to follow the sequence of events the entire way through, and it makes sense. Mm-hmm. If you compare that to what happens in these scenes in Rings of Power, there's no establishment of where people are and what the context of their individual battles are. Mm-hmm. Characters just come and go from different places in the battle and then just show up in a separate part of it later for some reason. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Jay Morrison says, well, they are the horse lords for a reason. That doesn't mean that they can just stop a full army charge. Like, that's just not how they work.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just hand wave it away and be like, well,
but that's
magic.
the problem. That's the problem. If you choose a couple of things in your TV show to hand wave away, me as the audience, if I have bought in up until that point, I am willing to forgive a few things. It is too much hand wavy for my personal taste. I also agree with Helene again that the sense of urgency in the show is very poor. Like things are just kind of bad. There's also someone mentioned that the magical walls of Eregion that appeared between like shots of Eregion at different points in time.
Because Eregion again is a year old. This city has only been here for a year. Yeah. Where did the elves who live here come from?
This is
like,
why
who are they?
This is why you needed establishing shots, which were very much missing in this city and in this fight.
Well, and I love that
the fight could have been really cool.
I love that we're supposed to care that Eregion was sacked, but we only have like 5 speaking elves in the entire season in this massive city. Mm-hmm. There's like the one guy who found the dead elf outside. There's the elf that people online for some reason thought was Celebrian, who died. That's the one that Smith that Sauron killed. There's Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
Like, there's only, like, you have this massive city that's supposed to have political... there's the soldier that gets upset because Celebrimbor doesn't give them orders. There's like 5 speaking elves.
Yeah.
And this show is $1 billion show. They have all the money in the world, and they have like 5 speaking elves to set up a city that I'm supposed to care about.
Yeah.
But I don't care about it because it's a year old, and I don't know anyone who lives there.
Yeah.
It seems like the only people that live there are like a few... There's like a few people who work in the forge, and then there's like 70 to 90 elves who live in the town.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it feels
It's
small.
a tower and a couple of... And so, like, the idea that it's this massive city that was built a year ago, that I don't know anyone who lives there. I don't know what life there means to anybody, because we only see this one courtyard over and over and over and over again.
Yeah. Again, the scale needed to be expanded.
Yeah.
I don't need to like meet every single elf, right? But we should have had some kind of like massive gathering of some kind to see like where like who are the people of Eregion, and like what are they doing? Even just a shot of a crowd at a ceremony of some kind.
We get one kind of shot. And it's maybe the best shot in the whole show. It's so technically impressive when it's the sunlight to darkness shot where Celebrimbor goes outside and it's all an illusion, and then when he goes back inside, they did that in real time. Amazing. And again, this is what I mean about they do some technical stuff on the show that is so brilliant that it's frustrating to me that the wider show isn't better, because that shot is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
It's so impressive that they did that, but So the setup is that we see a bunch of like artists and sculptors in that same courtyard that we spend all of our time in.
Yeah, no, that shot is fantastic. And that's why it's those moments that are so incredible that really highlight the places that it falls flat for me, because how they did it and then watching the how-to of it was so good. Let's get into the fantastic parts of the Sauron manipulation of Celebrimbor.
It's so good.
Because that rocked. Like the subtleties of it were, I think, really well executed.
Yeah.
I think that those 2 actors together were next level. Like incredible tier, acting.
Yeah.
And how it showed how Sauron used the people around Celebrimbor to undercut him. And like those were the moments where I really felt like the show shone. Right? The making of the rings, like the actual making of them, there was some stuff that I think was kind of breezed over in a way that was, again, unfortunate, because I think I wish that there were less plot lines to follow so that certain moments could really have that have the depth to them. But Sauron is scary. And there's a reason that he is Morgoth's, like, I don't know, right-hand man, I guess.
And again, Charlie Vickers is so good. Charles Edwards was so good as Celebrimbor. Like, the 2 of them... Yeah. It goes back to season 1 for me, where, like, I thought the Durin Disa Elrond plotline and acting and relationships were so strong that, like, I wanted everything else to be better because we have this piece that works so well. And the Sauron Celebrimbor stuff is that for me in season 2, where like the relationship between them, the way it degrades, the manipulation of it, the way we watch Charles Edwards play his Celebrimbor realizing he's in a loop with the mouse, like that. It's so good. And even though, look, once Myrdannia's on the wall, that she stops making sense as a character, right? But up until that, I think the way Sauron uses her to manipulate Celebrimbor is very good, right? I think she's a great character. I think that she's played very well, and she becomes this ploy between Celebrimbor and Sauron, and she's just sort of used by Sauron to have another angle to manipulate him from and to take control of Eregion from. I do, like, I agree with you. It's so good that it is, like, frustrating when they cut away from it to stuff that I really have a hard time giving a shit
When they go from
about.
that to the Harfoots, I'm kind of like, okay. Like, I'd rather...
Or from that to Numenor, where I'm like, oh, God, Numenor, Like, I really, like, I think the Sauron Celebrimbor stuff is so good. Yeah. That if that was what this show was, if this show was actually about the Rings of Power, I think that it would be elite. It's that this show is so distracted about the other stuff that the stuff that it's very good at, it has a hard time making important enough because we have to cut away to the 90 other things that are happening that aren't relevant and aren't going anywhere in the immediate.
Yeah.
And so the immediate stakes of Eregion keep getting undercut because Poppy and Nori are eventually going to do something, and we need them to like fall in love and do stuff in the background of the show, but their stakes are so low, so consistently, and the stakes in Eregion are always tight, right? Yeah. And it's something that I think House of the Dragon in season 1 and 2 does really well, is that the level of tension in a lot of the storylines is consistent.
Yeah.
And so as one thing ratchets up, so does something else.
Yeah.
This show doesn't have the same level of ratchet up consistently. Mm-hmm. And so some plot lines are either just forgotten about or languish. Mm-hmm. And some of them are like, well, we have this beautiful thing that we got to go show you. So we're going to cut over this plot line where nothing happens, but God is individual.
Yeah. The tension is lacking in a lot of ways, and when they manage to ratchet it really well in a scene, then we jump to something else where it just doesn't feel the same way, right? And I think that there's a point to be made about the timeline gets really weird with the tension because some people are humans and some people are basically immortal elves, so having those two things side by side, I will say, very difficult. Very difficult.
No, I agree.
I don't think that they have pulled it off very well, but I'm also willing to give grace to, like, that's a really difficult thing to do, and I don't.
But it is also your job.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things.
You are getting paid to do that.
You have the most money ever given to a TV show.
Yeah.
It is your job to do that well, right?
Yes.
Like, there's a point where I am. There is a point where, well, they don't have access to all of the material is no longer an excuse for spending so much money.
Yeah.
But not hiring like a consultant, a battle consultant, to just be like, well, this doesn't really make any sense on like any tactical level.
Yeah, you
have all the money in the world. How did you not just hire someone who could come in and be like, this is kind of just nonsense.
Yeah, actually, maybe let's adjust some things so that people can understand the actual like mechanics of the battle. Moving on to the Numenorian plotline, and Isildur, kind of pointless, didn't really matter. He
fell in love with a hot lady.
Yeah.
And they're in love now because
hot people love hot people.
Because they're both attractive. They have no reason to be attracted to each other other than physical attraction, but she's going to leave her fiancé for him.
Yeah, sure.
I really thought that she was going to betray him or something. I thought something was going to go on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Derek Willerton says the battle seemed pretty easy to understand. Then, congratulations. You understand stuff that doesn't work in a way that I don't. Congrats. You know what? I applaud you. You're so much smarter than everybody else because you can put together how horses can stop like that. That's great. Or how you stop a river with trebuchets that can't break walls but can destroy a mountain. That makes a lot of sense. It's so easy to understand.
I would love to hear how they got the trebuchets through that forest.
I would love to hear how the trebuchets destroyed enough of a mountain to take out a river.
There was a big rock standing by itself.
But
didn't you see the big rock?
Those same trebuchets can't break a wall, and so we need to take.
They tried really hard to break a wall.
Take a wood mallet to pull apart a stone wall. It definitely makes sense.
Anyways.
You know what? It would definitely work in real life.
Yeah.
It would 100% work in real life.
The Numenorian stuff, I think, very rushed and, again, underutilized. Because, obviously, Muriel is using the Palantir, which is bad, even though we're not... if we're putting lore aside, it doesn't matter. But the whole Palantir thing actually kind of feels a little silly. I disagree. I like the way the Palantir was used. No, because
it was like everything around
evil
it.
Magic. What do those people know about that rock?
I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem at all with the Palantir scaring people, especially because of the moment where Elendil goes down and the like screen fractures blue and he gets blasted away. Like. I actually don't have a problem.
She pulls out a rock,
but also,
and people are like, ah!
But Elendil's daughter is a respected person. She's in a guild. So her coming down and being like, I found this.
She joined a guild a week ago.
That doesn't matter. She got into the guild.
Okay, sure.
That's like saying that you don't trust your doctor because they only passed their certifications a week ago. They're still a doctor at that point.
I thought she's
not in med school.
I thought you entered the guild to learn how to become a master at your craft.
My problem with the scene...
That's why she's fucking, like, cleaning up wine or whatever.
Here, I'll explain my issue with it, because it's more complicated than I think you're letting it be. The Palantir is revealed, and then people freak out, which is right? The problem starts after that, when then Kemen goes and kills a guy to shut down a temple so that they can build an aqueduct. Like, none of that scene, the structure of that scene didn't make any sense. Right?
Yeah.
And so Pharazôn becoming king is fine to me. My problem now is that Pharazôn is so evil. And Kemen is so evil, and they've written them to just be evil characters. They're just bad people.
Well, Sauron's like, my work here is already done.
So Sauron doesn't have to manipulate them because they're just evil. Like, they kill people regularly. They commit people to death who haven't done anything, but because they might do something in the future. Like, they're like, all the faithful have committed treason. And it's like, why?
I was also really excited.
Like, why have the faithful committed treason? You can't just and twice in the same season, Pharazôn puts out the hit order on Elendil's people. Twice in the same season over nothing, over trumped up charges, even though he is not king either of the times that he does it.
Well, he's kind of technically king the second time.
No, he isn't, because Muriel went into the water and the Kraken pushed her out, so now she's queen again.
No, but she's not. She gets locked up.
No, but she's not locked up. Yeah, she is queen. What happens is Pharazôn, but that's after Pharazôn shows up with a piece of paper that says that it was Sauron. Like, the evidence...
Yeah, the evidence being, here is a piece of paper that I wrote.
The evidence
it's all Sauron.
She's working with Sauron is that they have a piece of paper?
Yeah.
Where the fuck does that come from? Like, it could have worked. The Numenor stuff could have worked if the finale for them had been really strong, right? But the problem is the finale for the Numenorians is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Second, because the horse charge stop is the dumbest.
That is my least favorite thing.
Pharazôn walking into a room and being like, we have a piece of paper that says it's Sauron.
Yeah.
Just... It doesn't work. It doesn't. You can't expect your audience to buy in that the entire city of Numenor would give power over to Pharazôn because he showed up with a piece of paper saying that Sauron is controlling the Kraken. Like, how could you possibly prove that and have people buy it? The guy reads the piece of paper and goes, "Well, that's damning evidence." Like, what was on the piece of paper?
I have literally no idea. Like, genuinely. Showing up with a piece of paper so that the plot can keep moving forward.
Derek, man, I'm sorry I keep coming back to you, but you keep saying stuff in the chat that is not, you're not thinking things through very well. I am not complaining about how Pharazôn found out about Sauron. I understand that he saw Sauron in the Palantir.
Yeah.
My problem is, Pharazôn walks into a room
with a
piece of paper and hands it to the leader of the faithful, the old guy with the white hair. That guy reads the piece of paper, and whatever was written on it was such damning evidence that man who follows Muriel, and whose last line before reading the piece of paper was that the Valar are the only allies Muriel has, and that they're the reason she's queen. That man reads a single piece of paper someone that Pharazôn, who's her enemy, handed her, and goes, well, clearly this is evidence. The faithful didn't look into the Palantir. Only Pharazôn did. And if the faithful found out that Pharazôn looked into the Palantir,
was using it,
he would get taken out of power.
Yes.
Like, the show establishes things and then it does things with them. You can't just be like, well, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I guess because Pharazôn has a piece of paper, we have to listen to him. It's Sauron.
Yeah.
That's bad. That is bad script writing.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. It's incredibly stupid script writing because the audience can't buy in on.
We're like, what's on that paper?
The evidence has to be true.
What's over there?
Naraf and Nerdy, Trump could be president for a second time. Logic has no hold in our reality. That's in the United States of America, where, yeah, of course, it's all misinformation. Yeah,
they don't have the internet in the Lord of the Rings yet.
You can publish misinformation all you want,
but.
And I guess that's what it is. It's just misinformation. But why does anyone buy it?
Yeah, like these
why does anyone believe it?
Be like, Numenor is supposed to be this almost like paradise before Sauron fucks it up.
And they do that twice in the same season. Elendil is Pharazôn brings Elendil up on charges of treason, despite the fact that he has not done anything.
Yeah.
Twice in one season.
Yeah.
And neither time does it go anywhere.
I was really excited for the daughter's storyline.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it just felt so like emotional woman makes dumb choices because emotional woman, which I think was...
Because she's in love with Kevin. Woof.
No,
girl, you can do better.
I don't actually think that that's it. I think that her dad gets home and is like, your brother's dead. And because he grieves about it in his own way and is struggling to talk about it, she fucking turns on him in 5 minutes and just betrays him because reasons. Because like her dad is struggling with his own grief. And I really hate that. Like I wanted so much for that character.
But she flip-flops at the end, and she goes and defends her dad because...
But then she changes her mind.
She knows Farazan's going too far.
And I don't know why she changes her mind in that moment.
Well, and that's the problem. There's no context for it. She just does.
She doesn't change her mind after her brother's best friend gets murdered.
No.
But she changes her mind when Farazan walks in with a piece of paper.
Yes.
And I was like, why... What are the reasonings for what these characters are doing? They do not exist.
Derek, the man that read the paper looks at the camera, looks up towards the camera as if the paper is damning evidence.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that some of you guys understand the show at all. Like, some of the comments, I'm sorry, this is going to sound mean, but like the way that some people are arguing with us in chat right now, I don't think you understand what we're saying, and I don't think you understand what the show was saying.
Oh, I think that there are, I think that...
It's mean, but like...
I think that you can kind of make up your own headcanon of stuff that the show doesn't establish to fill in those gaps, those lapses in information, right? Sure. If you're like, oh, well, maybe Gil-galad found Arondir on the field and healed him, maybe. Which isn't like a thing that happens, but you can fill gaps in the logic with your own kind of assumptions. But the show doesn't establish those, and that's why it's like, well, it like you could decide that that's what happened.
Sure,
but it's not like actually in the show.
But okay, and if it was the only time the show did that this season, I think that it would be better. It's just that it's the same thing twice.
Yeah.
Like, it's the exact same story beat as before the Kraken. The writers couldn't come up with a second thing to do, so they do the same thing twice. It's just the same beat. We're gonna have the faithful be treasonous. Like, Farazan has 2 actions in this entire season, and it is the same action, and it doesn't succeed either time. Right? Elendil gets away both times for some reason.
Well, he now is fully in charge of Numenor,
sure.
I think, when Elendil leaves.
Come up with something else. If you want to have it be treason at the end of the season, don't do treason the first time. Come up with something else.
Sure.
Come up with something that Elendil's actually done wrong instead of faking it. Because for the audience, it's like, well... If Farazan just makes shit up every time, why is Farazan doing this? Unless Farazan is evil. Farazan doesn't have a reason to do what he's doing except, see, I'm Farazan. I'm the evil man in Numenor who doesn't have a reason to do the things that I'm doing. He doesn't. He's not gaining anything out of it.
Yeah.
He's already at the height of his power in season 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not king, but he's right next to it.
And I wish that
They don't establish what Farazan gets out of what he wants to do ever. They just have him do straight up evil for no reason.
Yeah, and I wish that they had taken some of the lessons that they did with Sauron's manipulation and had Farazan's manipulations of the people on screen. Because people just kind of listen to him for reasons that I'm not really sure about. Because there were moments, there were moments where the eagle shows up and they're able to turn it towards Farazan, right? Like there's that is kind of the only manipulation moment that I can think of, and I'm like, I would have liked to have seen, again, had more time with the storyline. I would have liked to have seen him actually undercutting Mira, undercutting Elendil, and really serving the people, maybe getting into the good graces of the working class or something. But he literally just feels like capital E evil.
He just does evil stuff.
Yeah,
he's as evil as Sauron.
Evil plans.
And because he's as evil as Sauron can't manipulate him into going to fight the gods. And so I just don't know where they're. I don't know where they're going with this.
Yeah.
At this point, there's no reason for Sauron to go to Numenor. There isn't. There's Sauron.
It's gonna fall.
Elendil is gonna leave and go make Minas Tirith on his own, but he's supposed to do that because Sauron manipulates Farazan. Mm-hmm. There's an order of events, and now Farazan is just the bad guy in Numenor that goes and deals with himself. Like, nobody actually solves the Pharazôn issue. Numenor falls. Pharazôn takes the Numenorian fleet to the Valar, and they get fucking wiped out. So, there's no relationships over there anymore. Sauron has no reason to go manipulate him. He's already fucking evil as sin. So there's just, they've made Numenor this, like, black hole plotline where no one can succeed because it's the success, Sauron's success in Numenor has already happened.
Yes.
So Sauron Sauron as the protagonist of, because this show is Sauron's show, right? Sauron is the protagonist of the Rings of Power. His is the goal.
Yeah.
He's the one, everyone else is just reacting to him. Yeah. But Sauron is the one who is actively going from place to place to change things the way that he wants them to be. And he succeeds in season 1 by getting Mordor made. He succeeds in season 2 by getting the rings made and getting Eregion dismantled. Sauron is the lead of the plot. He's the one who is doing things. We are following him actively. The show is very interested in his emotional life about his decisions, as we see in the Celebrimbor scenes, where he gets emotional about Celebrimbor's prophecy around... he's very emotional about Celebrimbor's prophecy that his ring is going to destroy him, right?
Right.
And in focusing on his emotional feeling, his emotions around situations are the number one concern of this show. So he's now kind of the protagonist, but Sauron doesn't have a reason to go to Numenor anymore.
Yeah.
Because the Numenorians are a mess who don't have an armada. They're not a threat to him in any way.
They have 3 whole ships.
And so there's Elendil is already going to head down south to meet up with his son. And so they've kind of like shot themselves in the foot, in my opinion, around how they're going to handle the fall of Numenor and Sauron's part in it, because it's just already corrupt. Like, there's not a lot to do there.
In season 3, Numenor could literally crumble into the sea off scene, and we'd be like, I mean, yeah, they were fucked.
Yeah.
Like,
and like I just they keep setting them. It goes back to the Gandalf and Sauron fight idea. This show keeps setting themselves up to struggle in the future by promising things that I don't think the show wants to do, because the audience is not going to like it. Like, the audience is... I don't think the audience is going to enjoy watching Gandalf and Sauron have a meaningless battle that ends in a stalemate because nothing can resolve between them, because we know how things resolve between them. We've already seen their final fight.
Yeah.
Right? We've already seen how they interact in the future, and it isn't... They don't have a personal relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Because Sauron and Gandalf don't know each other. They've never spoken. Sauron was... fucking in Mordor the entirety.
Wait, why do you mean why are we assuming they're literally going to fight? That is in the show, that it's like, hey, you have to go stop Sauron.
Okay, so even if they don't fight, what does we know how Gandalf enters the plotline against Sauron? Like, we know where that goes, right? The audience is aware of it. It's one of the biggest movie series in the world. What can Gandalf do in the interim that would pay off what this show is about? That steers clear of, even if, okay, so let's take out a physical fight, right? Gandalf and Sauron don't have a fight. They never are in a scene together. What does Gandalf do in this show that makes him part of the narrative? Like,
maybe he goes and he helps found Gondor.
He literally can't. He can't do that.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like.
So now we're just but you have Isildur and Elendil. You already have the characters that do that in the show.
So, and that's the problem with the show setting him up as an antagonist to Sauron. The show has set that up, but we know that can't really happen except maybe in a roundabout way.
Mimug says he spends a season finding his hat. That's fucking hilarious. That is so funny.
I would actually dig that.
But with how this show's going, that and then he gets his makes
pipe.
Sense. Yeah.
Because he
season
puts
4
the pipe,
is the pipe. Yeah.
The pipe in the staff. Yeah.
They've set up that now Gandalf has to be involved in the last alliance. So maybe he doesn't fight, but he has to be. His destiny now is to be part of it.
Well, he's gonna have to go to the elves, right? He's gonna have to go to the elves because he does get the ring eventually, and whether or not that happens in the show,
3,000 years.
Well, but they might put it in the show. They might.
Yeah.
They might. It's messy. It's messy, and I think that it is unfortunate. The Disa Doran stuff. Love those two actors. Both
I hate
Durans.
the bats moment. I really...
We don't need to
the
talk
idea
about
that the dwarves would stop mining because Disa got some bats to fly their way is so odd.
We don't have to talk about the bats.
It's not like the bats are going to fly out forever. Like, it's... Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Then starts his firework business. Season 4 is Gandalf opens a fireworks stand.
I would love that.
He's crossing state lines to the states where he can buy fireworks and then crossing state lines back over where they're illegal to shoot them.
Yeah. The bats, whatever. Putting that aside, Doran, and Disa are all phenomenal together. Especially the father-son stuff on screen.
Yeah.
The rings are fucking scary, man. That was, I feel like, a very exaggerated timeline on the rings turning people evil. I wish that it had more time to breathe and that the ring corruption could be a lot more gradual. So that you're not sure if it's the ring or not, right? But it leaves room for doubt, press X to doubt, whether or not it's the ring or if it's the person, right? That like slow, gradual descent, I think would have been a more interesting choice.
Yes.
But they are on a very short timeline, I guess.
Even though the dwarves are notoriously hard to corrupt, they get corrupted immediately.
Notoriously difficult to corrupt.
But this is one of the difficulties of the show, in my opinion, is that the dwarves now, the king of the dwarves, right? Or, fuck, there's a whole... Durin's brother, who we've never met, is going to make a power play in Season 3.
Which is unfortunate. We should have met him. They should have established that.
We know...
It's fine.
I don't mind that he's not established. It's just like, if there's a chance that he takes power, why introduce him here? Why hasn't he been mentioned before?
Yeah,
and during the whole Durin Elrond stuff, he's like, "You're my brother," and I'm like, "Wait, Durin had an actual brother whole time?"
He has actual brothers. Brothers? I actually don't know.
One of the things that is, I think, going to be a struggle for the show is they now have to write themselves into the dwarves putting the rings on for some reason, even though the dwarves know 100% that the rings are evil.
Well, they've already got the rings.
No, but they know there is not a single dwarf wearing a ring right now. They're all
That's not true.
Yes, they're all on a plate in the throne room at the end of that season.
Oh, I thought he gave...
No, he promises the kings that they will get rings. But all 5 of the dwarvish rings are on a plate at the end of the season, right? At some point, they're now going to have to constantly explain that they're going to have to work really hard to get the dwarves who know that the rings are super fucking evil, like the super evil rings from the evil wizard, to put them on.
They also have to keep digging even though they know there's a Balrog.
They know that the rings were made by Sauron now.
Yeah.
Which the dwarves didn't when they put them on in the books.
Yeah.
They also have to keep on digging even though the Balrog exists.
That is a good point.
The dwarves have all of this information, and the show is going to have to... And I don't think the writers have been very adept at this so far, so I don't really trust them to figure this out later. They have to write themselves into... The dwarves have to act in ways that are self-destructive, despite the knowledge that the audience knows the dwarves have.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not like King Doran was corrupted over years like the rings do in the book, because they have the rings for 400 years before it's a problem. In this, it's immediately. It's just as soon as the ring's on your finger, you fucking lose your goddamn mind.
Ren also makes a point that they didn't show how Durin even got the ring back from the explosion. And again, that's another hand-wavy thing that by itself... that wouldn't really bother me.
I don't know, man.
But they keep doing that, where it's don't worry about it.
And so I think that, I understand that they're obsessed with the Lord of the Rings and they want to put in every reference they can to the future. But by giving their characters so much knowledge in advance, I don't know where these storylines go other than having to sort of... The writing is going to have this element of, backwards writing themselves into the characters having to... Every character has to be written into a reason why they wear the rings, even though they know they're bad news. And and maybe the other dwarves steal them from Durin, and all the other dwarves are just stupid and greedy before they have the rings on. But the point is that the rings are supposed to change people, and none of the characters who put the rings on are being changed because the show just writes people as awful from the beginning. Right? These characters are already greedy and selfish. These characters already have all the problems that the rings are supposed to make worse. Pharazôn already is evil, and Sauron is supposed to make him worse. Celebrimbor is already greedy, right?
Yeah.
Sauron is supposed to, influence him, but Celebrimbor is a greedy fuck in the first season. Right? And so the show keeps introducing people too far along their journeys, and then having Sauron, it's easy for Sauron. Everybody wants what he's selling.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to manipulate anybody.
Yeah. I did also, this was in our reactions, because we reacted to the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
I was so baffled that Celebrimbor did not know that the rings had worked. They had a ceremony where they used the rings. People showed up for it. It was like
there were like 12. To be fair, there were like 12 elves there.
They healed everything.
Yeah.
It was fine and dandy. And somehow Celebrimbor just never found out that the rings had worked. I think that the manipulations of Sauron work well for me later on, but there's again hand-wavy stuff in the beginning that feels very silly as to why characters know the things they know or don't know the things that they don't know.
Yeah.
And then make decisions based on those things, which seems lazy. It seems lazy.
Well, and I hate that I hate that Durin beats the Balrog the same way Gandalf did. You know what I mean? Like, he takes him down into the deep below while yelling back at his son. It was just like, it was just so the way that Gandalf does it in Fellowship of the Rings that it's like, I'm like, yeah, I've seen this. And so many people online, I saw tweets being like, God, isn't this like the most amazing visual in television? And I'm like, I mean, it's just a visual I saw in a movie 20 years ago. But like, it was great then, it's great now, but it's the same beat. You haven't changed it.
Yeah.
They didn't even adapt it to be something different other than it's like a family, the father-son relationship. Also, why did he take the ring off? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he couldn't take the ring off for his son, but he could take the ring off to take the Balrog out, I guess. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. He put it daintily on the ground while this Balrog's charging at him.
Maybe.
It's frustrating. It's frustrating because the scene is really good. We didn't really talk about the scene much, but God, the scene between the two Durins there is great.
Yeah, they're emotional.
Really, really solid acting.
I think for both seasons, the two of them together has had a really incredible emotional impact. I think it has served the story very well. I think that the descent into evil, wearing the ring, it happened too fast for my liking, but the acting and the scenes surrounding that were stellar, like incredible.
Yeah.
I wish that Disa had a little bit more to do in season 2 because I really think she's fantastic.
Well, and she had so much in season 1, and then she kind of just becomes doting wife and sonar machine in season 2.
Sonar machine, yeah.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like, she doesn't have the same emotional story. And she doesn't have conflict with Durin in the same way she did in season 1. And so she just kind of becomes Yeah. I think they struggled to have any of their characters of color have their own plot lines, because all of the characters of color ultimately just end up supporting the white people that they're standing next to. Arondir becomes like, Galadriel, what should we do, Commander? It doesn't solve his own plot.
Yeah.
Disa has that. There is a weird... Muriel just becomes... she's just locked in a tower literally the whole season.
Yeah, she's blind, so she can't, she realistically...
She doesn't have an arc. Elendil gets an arc, Galadriel gets an arc, and Durin gets an arc.
Yeah.
And all of the people of color sidekicks in their plot lines, even though she's the queen, she's sort of his, like, emotional support. She hands him Narsil. Yeah. But, like, they don't... It's very odd, but none of the characters of color have an emotional arc. They only are there to, like, look at a white person and be like, you have to save Middle Earth.
Yeah.
And it keeps happening to specifically the characters of color.
I know, and it's weird
very odd
that it keeps being those people specifically. Like, it's just odd. Valkyrie on Twitch...
the Asian elf just gets murked. Like, yeah, it's really...
straight up murdered. Like, yeah, I was like, guys... Valpy says they feel horrible for Disa. She lost her most valuable asset in being a stone singer, and not being able to do that anymore makes her just the wife. Which, like, give me that emotional storytelling.
We never get into it.
I know.
Durin doesn't.
I know.
Durin, as her husband, never, like, tries to talk about how she's feeling.
Yeah.
We never get a single scene. I'm sure she's feeling all that in the background, but the show never focuses on that because it has to be about how she's helping Durin.
Yeah.
Right? And it's fine. It's okay, but it's just not... it's not what I wanted, especially because Dees is so good in season 1.
I know.
And they just lock
So
them in
good.
the mountain with this sort of circular plotline that doesn't go anywhere, where it's
Yeah.
like, Doran, take off the ring. I'm not going to take off the ring. Doran, take off the ring. I'm not going to take off the ring.
Yeah.
And that's just all it is. It's just sort of like the show, and honestly, that's a lot of these plot lines.
Thank you, Immortal. I appreciate it.
Right? A lot of these plot lines in season 2 are just sort of stalling. The Harfoots
They spin their wheels because they don't have enough time to actually move forward. And that is, I think, one of the fundamental problems with the show, is not allowing enough time for plot lines because there are too many things going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just...
Yeah.
I really... I want to like the show. I think the actors are amazing. Across the board, I think the casting for the show is so good. And I think that individual scenes are so good. I think the set pieces are often awesome. I think that some of the cityscapes are too small.
Yeah.
But it really is... It is just sort of the, like, bridging writing that it's very frustrating to me. And I think Galadriel is a bad lead for the show, especially because she is just portrayed as dumb. Like, she keeps falling into whatever...
She doesn't tell Celebrimbor that Sauron is there, and that has to be the stupidest thing that you could possibly do.
Well,
right?
and her problem at the beginning of season 2 is that she is like, I am so upset because Sauron tricked me, and I helped him come back. And then in season 2, all she does is get tricked by Sauron and help him come back. And then we're supposed to treat it as a win that she kills herself. She obviously gets saved by magic, but like Galadriel, without Elrond putting a ring on, Galadriel dies.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
of her own failures.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating for this character to be just flaws and not have any, like, she's not redeemable in any way. She's not kind to anybody. She's so sure of herself, despite the fact that Sauron is succeeding because she keeps letting him. She just handed him the 9 rings because she watched Adar get fucking run through by orcs and let Sauron have a whole scene with him, even though she's like at the edge of the woods, and they don't show her on screen because I think the writers went, oh fuck, Galadriel's here, she's just gonna stand in the corner.
She's gonna be like, oh,
and so
no.
The entire scene with the orcs and Adar and then Sauron, Galadriel is present for it, and they never show her. Yeah. They never show her reaction. She's just made this like agreement with Adar that they're going to work together to save the orcs. And when Adar's getting murdered, they don't think that the audience might be interested in how the lead feels about that. And we never find out how she feels about that. The show never gets into how Galadriel feels about the fact that she witnessed Adar get murdered, stood there and did nothing the whole time, let Sauron monologue for a bit, and then fight Sauron after. Like, it's so weird to me because she's supposed to be the lead of the show. But in that scene, who are we following? We're following Sauron because he's the character the show actually cares about. Galadriel is just a tool to get Sauron to succeed. And so she's going to be as dumb as she needs to be at every phase of this show so that Sauron can succeed at everything.
Yes, and that is the problem, is that like her choices are not character driven. They are whatever we need her to do for the plot to happen the way we want the plot to happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Memonk says, I thought Adar was going to end up being her husband. When he first turned and the ring had returned him back to elvish form, I thought he was going to be Celeborn.
That would have been fucking hilarious.
And then when she's like, what was your name? I was like, oh, no, they're not doing that. But when he first turned and the ring had like stripped back and he looked like an elf again, my first thought was, oh my God.
That would have been wild. Oh my God.
Celeborn is going to have been Adar the whole time.
Yeah.
And then it was just, his name didn't mean, but like, then why put that in? Like that whole scene, he's like, oh, my name didn't matter. I became Adar. And I was like, oh, cool. And then he dies. And you're like, oh, I guess that's tragic. Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It is a show that has
it is a show.
So many incredible individual moments.
And if you like it for those moments, I get it.
I 100% understand that.
Yeah. Even if I'm a little salty about it, and I'm sorry, Derek, I feel like I came at you hard there a little bit, but
I think that this is a show where you can either focus on those things and really enjoy it. I can understand how a lot of people love the show.
Yeah.
The way that we view things is we get very analytical, whether that's from being in the business or just, how we view media. The way that we view it is this kind of like, how do the puzzle pieces fit together? And those things matter to us. And so that's why we like to talk about it. And so, unfortunately, the show as a whole does not work for us.
Yeah, and if it does for you, that's awesome. I'm so happy that it does because they spent so much money, and if everyone hated it, that would be really sad.
That would be tragic. And here's the thing, I'm like happy that artists are getting paid because fuck AI, and I'm genuinely worried about that taking over. There is stuff to love in this show, and that is why I get so worked up about it. Because I want it to be those things the whole time.
Because the stuff that is good in the individual scenes deserves the show around it to be as strong.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Fabu,
yes.
Thank you for that super chat.
Fabu,
Nerdy Nightly, always coming at you hard. That's true.
Can confirm.
I do yell in this room a lot. I agree. I think that the scenes are so good sometimes that you want the show around them to like lead into them well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the problem, right? Is like even when I'm enjoying the show, it'll then cut to something that feels like the air is let out of the balloon. And when I am invested, it will like cut itself back somehow.
Yes.
Like I thought the Sauron Galadriel fight had some really interesting stuff in it. It was just that the ending of it was just fine.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I didn't get a lot of hers getting stabbed and then jumping off the cliff, and I get it. Elrond jumped off the cliff earlier in the season, so we're doing that again.
But he jumped into a river.
Yeah, but she was jumping to keep the ring from him. He was jumping to keep the rings from Galadriel, and now Galadriel is jumping to keep the rings from Sauron. Yeah. I understand, like, we're repeating ourselves, and I understand narratively why we do that. Mm-hmm. But it just meant that it was a way to have them interact, but have the scene not end on anything. Mm-hmm. Like, the scene wasn't it's this confrontation between the two of them where they're like, well, now we're really fighting for real. And it's like, oh, okay. I would have rather spent more time with Celebrimbor because that was a relation. They have an actual, like, and maybe it's just that I don't buy the whole Galadriel loves Sauron thing. I think the show does romance really poorly. I think the Isildur random girl romance is not good. Mm-hmm. It's so out of left field. I thought the Bronwyn Arondir one was good, but obviously she's gone.
Unfortunately, and that is a logistical thing that is just it just sucks. Like, it is what it is, but it unfortunately sucks. They couldn't do something interesting with that choice.
They kind of make it seem like love is truly a magical force.
Love is an open door.
No, but they make it that...
But Galadriel says the door is shut.
Love is like this magical force that overcomes people in Middle-earth, and I don't buy love that way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that Galadriel could actually have genuine feelings for Sauron, given her grief over her husband. Well, she doesn't really feel grief about her husband's death, but given her grief over her brother's death.
She barely remembers her husband.
And so
Yeah.
And so I like a lot of the individual pieces, but, like, the show really, like... Mr. Manrique says the show... There's new political writers for Season 3 for the Numenor plotline. Great.
Okay.
Awesome. I'm so glad they're bringing someone else in, because the people doing it now don't get it. Like, they're not... I
definitely don't think that was their strong suit.
And, to be fair to Rings of Power, House of the Dragon is nailing it and came first. So, like, Rings of Power is in this weird position where there is a show that is doing the political side. And look, I don't like the finale of Season 2. But the political side of House of the Dragon is really strong.
I agree, yeah.
And so, in comparison, Rings of Power maybe looks worse than maybe I would feel if I didn't just get a fantasy series that does this very well. Maybe. I don't know.
It's hard to know. We'll never know.
Galadriel
was married, yes.
Two French Bears says, which is worse, Wheel of Time or Rings of Power? Tough time for epic fantasy. I think Rings of Power for me. I think Wheel of Time is...
I think Rings of Power is more disappointing to me.
Yeah. I think it's a worse show. I think Wheel of Time is a better show. I think Wheel of Time...
Even if some of the choices have me going like, what
I don't love Wheel of Time.
No.
But I think that the show has a vision for what it is trying to be.
Yeah, and I liked most of it.
And I actually don't think Rings of Power has that. I think Rings of Power is trying to see 2 seasons in, Rings of Power is still trying to figure out what it is about. And I can't tell you right now. Because I understand that it is a condensed version of events that happen that lead up to the last alliance of men and elves, right? I understand that is what is physically happening on screen. It doesn't seem like this show has a perspective on tragedy. And so I think that outside of Celebrimbor, it is really struggling to establish what the theme of tragedy means for Middle-earth in this case. In a way that Wheel of Time, I understand thematically what the overarching show is going for better throughout the show, but I think is a worse adaptation.
I actually don't know if I agree with you 100% on that, because the show opens with Galadriel being shaped by the atrocity and death that she has seen in a way that I don't think makes her very interesting. Like, I think that, like, they made poor choices around it.
Yes.
But I think that the fact that it so deeply affects people, which was a thing that I think that Tolkien put into his writing about those, like, atrocities, like, affecting people strongly. I just think that, like, apart from the opening and the beginnings of season 1, I think that they've kind of let it fall to the wayside. They established it, and then it kind of fizzled out.
But I'm saying, like, the tragedy of this show is inconsistent across plot lines in a way where the theme isn't strong. Whereas I feel like the thematic ties between the plot lines of Wheel of Time come together much better than this show does.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that because I think that Gandalf's storyline is a story of hope in a show where he shouldn't exist. Right? Like, I one of the reasons why House of the Dragon handles how pointless their war is because they keep on bringing up that the Song of Ice and Fire is important, but that it isn't happening right now.
Yeah.
That one day, we are fighting for the fact that one day we will have a savior, which is what I think Rings of Power should be going for more. But they keep cutting to these plot lines where the idea is that we have to have this, like, hope of Gandalf defeating Sauron. We have to have this hope of the hobbits finding the Shire. And thematically, I don't understand why that's a part of this show. Right? I don't know what the tie is between these different things that all happen, that are just being condensed from a bunch of different stories where they didn't happen simultaneously in the books because they're thematically different. They just kind of smushed them into something where these thematic things that happen hundreds of years apart in Tolkien's writing, because they are different, right? They're clashing.
Yeah.
And so the whole show is struggling to be about, like, an underlying theme or message or something like that, because they have to because studio notes. And honestly, look, I'm being mean to the writers in this video. I understand that. There's a really good chance that the writers of the show are fantastic, and they are pulling great scenes out of studio notes that are destroying.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
100%.
100%.
I do really believe that studio notes are the problem behind the show. 100%.
It is very likely.
I think there are mandate issues here that are stronger than writing issues.
Yeah.
Because I think the writers are, like, fine. I don't think they're terrible. It's just that, like, the outline is bad.
Yeah, I mean, all the writers did get fired, so.
Yeah, but that might be because they're, like, trying to do something different, and and Amazon's saying no, right? Like,
yeah, it totally might be. None of us will ever really know, right? And I think it is important to, like, leave room for those graces, for sure. Chris Pilkington says it's a shame they killed off Adar because he could have been such a good ally antagonist next season. I don't think so. I don't know how much more you could do with Adar and having the orcs be not aligned with Sauron. I think
the show's gonna have a problem of not having any villains.
With Sauron.
I know, but they can't fight
Pharazôn.
Okay, but you can't do 3 seasons of fighting Sauron. He can't.
Because he can't
die.
No, I know.
Like, they killed off.
So there's no stakes in it.
They've established one orc and one ogre.
Oh, they killed
the orc and the ogre are both dead.
Yeah,
they're the troll. Sorry. So there's no villains for, like, and this is one of the struggles I think that The Hobbit had, where they had to, like, come up with something for the characters to fight. Season 3 is going to have to set up somebody that isn't Sauron for war scenes to happen.
Probably the other dwarf kingdoms, maybe, because there's definitely a schism in the dwarves in regards to Sauron. right?
Yeah, but then like we're just that feels like spinning our wheels narratively to me. It might work. It might work, but like I do think that Sauron's army being some generic orcs that don't have much in the way of equipment and yet are able to take down the elves, which is just crazy to me. The fact that they were able to take down horseback elves with fucking like short swords makes the elves would steamroll the shit out of that army, but whatever. Yeah,
I guess the Dark Wizard is also going to definitely be an antagonist. He's a straight up murderer. The Iron Hills want their tribute back. Yeah.
But okay, but let's go with the Dark Wizard and Rune, right? What is the stakes of that fight, and how does that involve our main characters?
We don't know yet.
Because Galadriel isn't going to ride out into the desert to go. So now they just have to go fight. Like the next logical thing to happen in this show, the way that it's established right now, is that men and elves band together and go kill Sauron in Mordor. Like that's the next real fight for the characters who have relationships with one another. So season 3 now has to introduce a bunch of relationships and antagonism, and I think that that's a lot to ask of the show at this point. Because again, Pharazôn doesn't fight in Middle Earth. Pharazôn fucks off to go fight the Valar.
Yeah.
Right? Like we know that Pharazôn's battle isn't Middle Earth ways. He has to go turn the entirety of Numenor and go off into the ocean.
War on the gods.
Yeah. So like the Numenor plot. If the Numenor plotline becomes they move to Middle Earth and start fighting the elves, and then at some point in season 5 they just decide to go fight the battle, like that's gonna feel real odd.
The reason the Numenor plotline just feels so lackluster is because it's like, all right, well they're gonna go build ships and go fight the Valar, and then they're gonna get their fucking asses kicked. Numenor's gonna sink, and they're gonna crawl back to Middle Earth and like.
Judah Shadford said the stakes that if Gandalf doesn't defeat the Dark Wizard will align with Sauron, but that wizard doesn't get defeated here because all 5 of the wizards still exist.
Well, we don't know that.
And so that wizard is Saruman, and Saruman does align with Sauron.
We don't
in 3,000 years. So like
we don't know it's Saruman.
But then, okay,
I know I don't like it either.
Okay, but then hear me out. If the Dark Wizard and Gandalf fight in the desert, right? The Harfoots have left. So are we going to watch a whole season of Gandalf alone in the desert fighting Ciarán Hinds?
Hey, Tom's still around.
Tom Bombadil cannot... If we get to the point where Tom Bombadil is fighting...
I know.
We have lost the plot.
Yeah.
And we've already lost a little bit. But, like, Gandalf is... Guys, I know that this show has fucked up distances so bad, but it is so hard to put to words how far away from everybody else Gandalf is.
Well,
there is a plot happening in Europe, and Gandalf is in Turkey. You know what I mean? Like there's Lyndon is like fucking France, and Gandalf is in Turkey right now. You know what I mean?
That's why it feels messy. Like one thing that I love about shows and books and series is I feel like I can understand the trajectory of where things are going.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Even if I don't know what happens next. There is like a logical momentum in a direction, which feels like it is missing here.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, why the stakes feel lower, the tension isn't working, and it feels a little bit deflated.
Well, and one of the tough things is like the Dwarven rings were made. We now know that they're evil and that they shouldn't put them on. So now we have to, like, the plot just has to be, why do the dwarves put the rings on? Which I think is, like, despite what they know, the dwarves have to put the rings on. And so now we need to write reasons why the characters do something they shouldn't do, which to me creates difficult television.
Yeah.
The humans now have to get the rings, but we don't know who the humans are. So the humans are just, we're going to give 9 rings to 9 random dudes. That do not matter to the show at all. Because there's no kings.
Unless they give one to Pharazôn.
Pharazôn can't get a ring. Pharazôn does not come to Middle Earth and he goes to fight the Valar and does not become one of the 9 Nazgûl. Those characters are characters for these things.
They have already changed so much. I genuinely would not be surprised if that is what they did.
But say they do. What does that get you? all it does, but all it does is complicate the future of the show, because now you have to explain why he loses it, someone else gets it, and he leaves.
What do you mean loses it? No, he becomes the Witch King.
He can't become the Witch King.
Why not?
Well, I guess, fuck.
Why not? And that's the thing, is it's like they can kind of, they're just kind of fucking around and doing whatever they want. So, like, yeah, it could be that. What is the point of making the 9 rings if they have no point in the show? Well, and that's the thing,
because there's 9 kings of men who are gonna get them. Kemen will probably get a ring.
Kemen! Oh my God.
Because he's at least in Middle Earth, right?
That would actually be hilarious.
But, like, the whole point of Sauron manipulating Numenor is that he's scared of them, and he can't be scared of them in the show because they're fucking useless. They're terrible at everything, right? The Numenorians do not have a win in the show. They're already so corrupt. Like the glorious halls of Numenor are just corrupt deceit filled with warriors who lose fights. Like that's what they've been established as. They're not good at anything. They don't have a good armada. They don't have good soldiers. They barely scraped by against us in a small skirmish against orcs in the sunlight.
They literally needed Galadriel to train their soldiers because they don't know how to sword fight.
Like, they just haven't set them up as something scary for Sauron to want to defeat. Like, I don't know why Sauron would even turn his eye towards them.
Miss Manrique, I think that it is a mistake then to call your show The Rings of Power. You have to include all the rings.
Well, they do. The rings are all in the show.
No, their point was saying that they're not, that the 16 are, you don't think the 16 are a priority to the writers.
No, this whole season was about making the 9. We had 3 episodes where Sauron was torturing Celebrimbor into making the 9. Yeah. Celebrimbor cut off his thumb over making the 9. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Derek Golden says, to be fair, the force they sent over in season 1 was shown to be a small volunteer force. Yeah, but they haven't established there is any other force.
But they burned a couple of ships, and, like, that was a problem, that they didn't have any backup ships.
They didn't have enough ships to keep going.
Like, they, like, literally didn't have any backup ships other than those, like, 6.
They had 5 total ships, and 2 of them burnt.
5 or 6, yeah.
And so it's like, they have done no work to establish that Numenor is this giant armada, right? Mm-hmm. Steve Owen says, when will you finish the show? We finished it. We've seen all of it.
We're not reacting to it.
No, we're not going to post reactions.
So,
because it's literally just us sitting there being like...
Apparently, Pharazôn does bring an army to Middle Earth.
Our Pharazôn?
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I think Pharazôn and/or his son
Pharazôn bring an army to Middle Earth?
Are candidates for the rings. However, here's the thing. Here is the thing. Are we distinguishing men from the Numenorians? Because right now, they're the same. And so I guess, like, the Numenorians can get some rings. And then this is also another problem I have with the show, is the Numenorians are just dudes. Like, they are just men. They're not mystical. They're not fantastical. They're not grander in any way, which I think is just also very unfortunate. Yeah. Maybe Pharazôn will go to Middle Earth to capture Sauron. The problem is Pharazôn is already corrupt. Pharazôn is already a piece of shit. So I just can't even imagine that Sauron has anything to do there. Elves aren't mystical at all either. I mean, they got a magic tree. They're kind of cool.
Oh,
like they're good fighters.
No, you're right. I'm wrong.
The elves...
No, and they're right. I am 100% wrong. I'm thinking about Pharazôn later, but no. Pharazôn does march into Mordor and capture Sauron, takes him back to Numenor, and that's when Sauron... No, I'm 100% wrong. And I've been wrong this whole video. Well, that's on me.
But then again, Pharazôn already feels evil, so I just can't... I don't know what Sauron has to do. Yeah, I
don't know. I feel like... You know what? Here's a bold prediction. Because I just wanted to check, and I'm wrong.
Okay, that's fine.
But
it happens.
Because I just read this and I forgot that Pharazôn forces Miriel to marry him to become king. And I feel like the way they've handled it on this show is to avoid that. I think that they didn't want to have Pharazôn... I don't think that they wanted Pharazôn to force Miriel to marry him on the show. And so they wrote this in a different way to avoid the forced marriage.
Oh, interesting.
And honestly, that makes sense to me.
Here's the thing. Pharazôn is corrupt. Pharazôn just told the soldiers to rip people out of their homes and burn Numenor.
Yeah.
Elendil rides away and Numenor is on fire behind him. Like, there are smoke plumes. There are people screaming as they are ripped unceremoniously from their homes. There are people who are arrested for no reason. Like, I'm sorry, but Pharazôn is corrupt.
Yeah.
He is a radical and also corrupt. Like, he doesn't have some kind of, like, magical vision.
Also, the weird thing now is going to be, why does Pharazôn ride on Middle-earth?
Well, because maybe they think that Muriel aligned with Sauron, that they're gonna go kill Sauron.
I don't know, man. I think that the show just makes me so frustrated, and there's so much good shit in it. The guy who plays Pharazôn is amazing. He's such a good actor that I just wish his plotline was more interesting and not just fake treason twice.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what bugs me more than anything.
Yeah. Pharazôn will come with an overwhelming force of 40 Numenorians. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, which, unfortunately, we joke about, but it feels like that is sometimes what the decisions that the show makes.
Well, and I truly think, like, the show had the big horse charge for the trailer, and then couldn't afford to actually do anything with it, and that's why we never see what happens to that force. Because there's not thousands, there's 1,000 horses that charge in that fucking scene, and by the time Elrond gets out of the tent where he gives the clasp to Galadriel, they're all dead already. Like, something happens, it's suddenly night. There's a lot of weird shit that happens.
Yeah.
Also, for some reason, the trebuchets are putting off so much smoke that it blocks out the sky, but there's just fire. Like, there's normal fire. The show just says that it works the way that it works. And I think that's what's so frustrating about it. The show just keeps telling me, like, it's not real. Our trebuchets make smoke. So much smoke that the entire sky is now darkness. And I'm like, okay, how did you do that? Like, with what? It doesn't seem like you have anything that with you. It just does. Oh, okay. Well, I guess if it does.
Yeah.
I guess.
They had to have a battle, so.
We have to dam the river. Okay. Yeah. That's not how rivers work.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is if it was one thing or another thing, or you can't do and. It has to be or. If you are doing things that are hand-wavy and we're not supposed to think about, it is or. It is not and this, and this, and this. Because it just becomes too much.
And honestly, like, there's definitely stuff I've said in this video that's wrong. I think that I get frustrated and ramble a little bit, but it's frustrating because, like, I got really excited for the trailers. I thought that the season... I was on video being like, I think season 2 is going to be the comeback show of the year.
Yeah.
And... I did. I thought it was going to be the comeback show of the year. And, like, for me, like, we've only stopped watching 4 shows.
Ever.
Attack on Titan, because of how many death threats we were getting.
The Witcher
Blood Origin. Willow. And this. Like, there's 4 shows that we've ever stopped. I guess Metallic Rouge, I only watched episode 1 and I didn't really enjoy it, so I don't really count that. Mm-hmm. But, like, in our reaction series, there's 4 shows ever that we have stopped. And all of them are kind of for the same reason, where, like, with Willow, I loved Willow so much as a kid, and that show just felt awful to me. And because it wasn't about Willow, which was frustrating.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, for sure. No, it wasn't that it wasn't about Willow. It's that it kind of shit on.
It kind of hated
the
Willow.
movie.
It hated oh my god, the lead, the woman, I can't remember her name, the queen. It made her into an awful person for some reason.
Sorsha.
Sorsha, yeah. Like, it made Sorsha bad.
Like a piece of shit. Yeah. So it was just kind of like, it just felt bad from the beginning. And
so, yeah, I don't know. With Rings of Power, I'm frustrated, and so I'm misspeaking a little bit. But my feelings are my feelings, and I'm being honest about it. Stanley says we should watch The Penguin. I want to. With our move, we don't have time to add a show right now.
Yeah, that'll have to be later.
So I think we might just watch it, and we might do this for The Penguin, where we do a spoiler chat at the end of the season. And we might not react to it, because honestly, by the time we get to reacting to it, we're going to miss the ratings moment. Yeah, we can't react to everything, unfortunately.
Yeah, we don't have enough hours in the day between the D&D stuff that we produce, the other videos and content that we make, like having a life. It is unfortunate.
Rona Chain says, damn, we started to hear that. It's weird. It's a weird feeling to drop a show or lose connection with it. Yeah. But honestly, like, and here's the thing. The thing we haven't talked about this whole time is that I was bored. Like, it's not even like I was... Like, look, there's a lot of shit that we've complained about in this show, but those moments are actually few and far between. And the great scenes are probably more plentiful than the things that I don't like, right? But it was hard to react to the show because I was really bored a lot of the time.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the pacing of dialogue is really slow.
Yeah.
I think that, like, there's episodes where nothing happens. And... I found the show boring.
Yeah. Someone mentioned Interview with a Vampire. That is on the list to do. I have heard season 2 is phenomenal. We would love to get to it. It is just that we are busy and...
Right now our plan for Interview with the Vampire, we don't know if this is going to happen because we don't know when season 3 is going to drop, but our idea for Interview with the Vampire is that we're going to do, like, all 8 episodes in the 8 days that lead up to the day that season 1 drop, or episode 1 of season 3 drops. So, like, we'll be like, we're going to try and, like, do something different where we take season 2 of Interview with the Vampire and hit it boom, 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 boom. So it'll be 8 days of interview leading up to the day that season 3 drops. Because really, really, really liked the first season, and we just haven't had a chance to watch season 2 yet.
Yeah. Jay, we are staying in Toronto. We're not moving from the city. We are still Toronto GTA people, so it's not like a crazy far move, but it is
but it's a lot of work.
Stuff. It's our sets. We have so many cameras. We had to take down the D&D set. And we're gonna have to rebuild that at the new place. So, yeah, it's gonna be a lot. But this was a wonderful stream. Thank you guys so much for being here. I did not expect it to be this long.
Pyroman brings up Z Nation. Z Nation's very good if you like zombie stuff. I can't react to it. I've already seen it, and Clark doesn't like zombies. So I recommend Z Nation. I think that show's very fun.
Yeah.
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 James Ross, the couch is at the other house. The couch isn't even here.
Couch is at the other house. Yeah. It's weird. Our house is like
so empty. Yeah.
60-70% empty. It's very weird.
This is the only room with stuff in it.
Yeah. Hey, fellow Canadian, let's fucking... Oh, no, you've been to Montreal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, same thing. We, more than anything, above all else, just try and be honest on this channel. And sometimes we don't love things. And we didn't want to put out a weekly, we hate this video. Yeah. Which is why we didn't want...
Which is why we ranted in this video.
Yeah. So we were like, we'll make one video and we'll, like, cathartically just, like, hammer out shit. And also be given perspective from chat, right? There are things that, chat agrees on. There's chat that things doesn't agree on. Yeah. And that is also fantastic. Like, I do not expect anyone to come in here and be like, I have all the same opinions as you do. Yeah. Like, part of the reason of doing it like this is so that we get a back and forth and we can talk about it. And so thank you for, spending your time here.
Yeah.
We'll probably...
I'm sorry if I yelled at you, Derek. Mostly Derek.
We'll probably do more stuff like this. We do this for movies sometimes. Mm-hmm. If we don't react to a movie, sometimes we'll do this kind of thing. So I hope that for some of you this has also been helpful or therapeutic.
Helene, thank you so much for the knock. The super duper chat. Holy shit. That's so like sweet. I have no idea.
Norwegian? No, like
yeah,
Norway?
What is that currency? What is NOK?
I actually don't know.
North Korea? Helene, keep your money.
No, thank you so much.
North Korea?
That is so kind. Thank you.
Norwegian currency maybe?
Thank you so much. It's guys, we cannot wait to show you the new house. If you are a member, if you are a subscriber to the channel. Yeah. We will be showing you guys the new setups and stuff like that. We're really, 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 really hyped about it. At least I am. So thank you for that super duper chat.
I have a question before we end here. We have not yet seen Joker 2, but I don't think we're going to react to it because of all the music. Would people be interested in us doing this for Joker 2? Or does nobody care?
Has anyone seen it?
Because if nobody... Oh, Norwegian kroner. Oh, very cool. Well, Helene, thank you all the way from Norway. Thank you so much. That's so sweet of you.
We plan on visiting
one
day.
We really appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, I want to see Norway.
I know.
Yeah, I really want to see Norway.
One day, we'll just... Yeah.
Joker 2, haven't seen it. Is it something that people... Does anyone give a shit? Because it made $39 million. It bombed so hard.
That's what I mean. I don't even know if people have seen it, if we did this kind of spoiler chat. So,
sorry, I got a little heated. I meant to be more positive today, and I wasn't. And there was a lot of stuff. I hope that the stuff that we liked came across. If you're an actor in the show and you watch this video and you got all the way to the end, fucking props to you. You're generally all really great. And I wish that I liked the show you were in more because I think you were all fantastic. I really, and like if you made the sets, the costumes, I know some people give the armor for the show shit. I think it actually looks really good. I thought Gil-galad's armor.
For the most part, I think it looks pretty incredible. There are a couple moments where I'd be like, but generally overall, I think it's pretty well done.
I really, really like Gil-galad's armor.
Yeah.
Y'all love The Substance. I think we're going to react to The Substance because I've heard it's wild.
The Substance?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's a new movie with Demi Moore. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the music makes a reaction difficult, so...
Yeah.
Maybe, okay, you know what we'll do?
It doesn't seem like anyone gives a shit about Joker 2 except Stanley, so...
Here's the thing. I think we can put a poll in the Discord and as a, like, YouTube channel, like, post. We'll do a poll. If there is enough interest in people watching a stream, we might go see it and talk about it. If not, we're just not going to bother. I have not heard good things, so I'm a little bit nervous about that. Before we get out of here,
I did a podcast today with Dice Cream Sandwich. And if you guys could go give that a like to help it gain some traction. We're trying to grow that channel before our charity stream later this year.
Yeah, we're doing a huge charity stream if you missed that announcement.
So if you could... if you could click on that link, go give that a like for me. I would mean a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. This stream definitely felt a little ranty, and I
felt cathartic to me. I feel better.
But that's the thing. Is I kind of like said the things that I felt like were weighing on my chest, and now I'm like whatever. And maybe now I can enjoy the parts of it that I did enjoy more without the weight of the things that like bothered me.
Ho hum. The charity is Doctors Without Borders. We're going to be raising money over on the Roleplay Relay from November 20th to December 13th. 7 streams, 7 realms, 28 content creators.
Yeah, we're going to be playing some D&D, rolling some dice, and killing Vecna.
For charity.
Yeah, for charity. It's going to be fun.
Hopefully we like Joker 2 then if we do a stream, but we'll see.
Yeah.
If you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you don't, hit the dislike button. Leave mean comments down below because the algorithm god is hungry and we must feed her. This episode, that algorithm goddess is...
Fucking Muriel she did not get to do anything.
Muriel's great. That actress, fantastic.
She's fantastic. She had a moment where she got pushed into the sea and came back out, and that was pretty badass. But other than that, she was a little underutilized, and that sucks.
If you want to follow us around the internet, you can. I'm at nerdynightly.
I'm at Claris Polaris.
Do something nerdy tonight. Thank you, mods.
Bye. I appreciate you guys.